Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome to episode 23 of the Council Forcecast, where we have a kind of open news broadcast for you today. A bit of trailers here, a bit of celebration there, all that jazz. And taking us away with it is going to be Antoine, because he's the news guy, as you know. Go ahead, Antoine.
The first bit of news we have is somewhat recent because we're a little bit behind on our news, but the actor behind R2-D2 recently passed away, Kenny Baker. He was the gentleman who actually was inside the original suit of R2-D2. They even used him a little bit in Force Awakens and the prequels, but I would say let's all take a moment of silence for Kenny Baker. Okay, thank you. All right, so the next one.
One thing I do want to say about Kenny Baker is, considering that I know that little people tend to have health problems because they're so little, 82 years old is actually a damn fine age to make for a guy with those kinds of health problems. So, good job, Kenny Baker.
It's true.
Definitely, because they tend to have circulatory issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, he that was a full life.
Same with
his generation.
Same thing goes for exceptionally tall people as well. They have a lot of problems in their legs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that is completely true.
So he lived a full life, so that's what counts. Full and happy.
So back in 2008, do you guys remember? I believe it was like Star Wars Celebration, whichever number it was at that point. George Lucas made an announcement for a live-action TV series.
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys all remember that, right?
That went through the ringer for months on end. Oh, it's canceled. Oh, it's delayed. Oh, it's back again. Oh, no, it's going to be on this channel. No, it's going to be on this one instead. No, it's going to be about this era. No, it's going to be about this one instead. Fun time.
Wasn't the odd
Fun
thing?
times plenty.
He wanted no Jedi involved, and he wanted it to have nothing to do with anything or something like that.
That was the original plan, but then later
I started making jokes. I started making jokes with my friends that the Star Wars live action series should be a CSI spin-off set on Nar Shaddaa.
Oh my god!
You make jokes, but that's the thing about Star Wars. Anything like that works. You can take any premise and you can put it in the Star Wars universe and have it be great.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see a CSI spin-off based in the Star Wars universe. That would actually be amazing.
Yeah, anything works, and it would flesh out the universe as well.
Yeah, I think that's the last thing that was kind of confirmed was that it was going to be focused around bounty hunters and Boba Fett specifically, and that was kind of how the spinoff of where 1313 came from, was where that was supposed to be about Boba Fett, a Boba Fett video game. It's just that the prototype they had was like some
got put through the ringer and changed again and again.
Yeah,
we never even got that game, which still pisses me off.
Right, that game is kind of being repurposed for the game that was announced at Celebration, which I didn't even put as a news thingy, but the one that's being made by the woman who used to lead the Uncharted series. Forget her name, Amy something, right? Amy Hemming. Someone will correct me in the comments. Yeah. I'm sure someone's going to correct me. But yeah, she got to kind of repurpose for that, and they're doing it in the Force Awakens era. So ABC is now in talks with Lucasfilm about doing a TV series, but my fear is that Marvel, their stuff on TV, on network television, generally isn't that great, and I wouldn't want to see Star Wars be that cheap looking.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Star Wars edition.
Right.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I don't know if you guys watch it, but it gets a hell of a lot better later on than it does to start with. It starts off incredibly cheesy and painful to watch, but past the halfway through the first season, it does jump up in quality. So I wouldn't be surprised if they take lessons from that.
Hopefully.
I mean, I'd be cool if it was a Netflix thingy, where you could binge it.
Yeah, it's so popular these days. Why not?
The Daredevil series is well handled, so if they do it in the same mold as that, that's actually a setting where having a lower budget actually becomes more of an asset, because when the whole point is looking grungy and run down, well, you just gotta go find some place in mid-city New York that looks exactly like that. You don't need much of a budget.
Just keep it contained. Makes it much more easier.
Yeah, more difficult with Star Wars because you've got the whole, it has to look like Coruscant or whatever you're setting in it. But it's the same principle, really. You can do it within a studio, no problem.
We're on a very low-budget planet.
Yeah. It's basically Earth, but
definitely any good television...
That's actually exactly how they came up with the sets in the movie Blade Runner. They just went to Pinewood Studio, took the existing city set, and just covered it with all of these futuristic decals. And that's how they made Los Angeles in the future. So taking that same method and just applying that to a similar set,
could work, potentially. I mean, Blade Runner is an amazing movie. I love that movie.
Yeah, Blade Runner's freaking awesome.
Fantastic. Harrison Ford, ironically enough.
TV. The best thing about TV usually is about its writing and dialogue. So that's the thing that would have to be like in the forefront if they did like a TV series for Star Wars, which usually is not the best part of Star Wars. So that would be interesting. Like if they can,
you have to get
really
the
make
right
them,
cast too.
yeah, to make that work.
Getting a real chance for development and just letting the world breathe. That's what the TV programs are best for, really. When you compare them side by side to film, anyway. Obviously, there are distractions on both sides, but.
I've mentioned this to you guys before, but one thing I've always wanted to see has been a Game of Thrones style TV show centered around the ancient Sith.
That'd be dope.
You could do so much. You could do so much
in
Star Wars in that vein.
Set on Korriban and all that.
Any era, any theme.
Just as long as they refer to Korriban as Korriban and not as Moribond.
Moribond.
Ugh.
So yeah,
it's Korriban, damn it. Get it right.
Your K's and your M's.
It's like language, those things get like fixed over time by how people pronounce them and things like that.
Yeah.
All right, the second story we have is J.J. Abrams. Oh, speaking about spin-off series and things we were talking about, he says he would like to see a Knights of the Ren spin-off or some sort of like story just about that, which I would think they would do, maybe not just of Knights of Ren, but also the Jedi Order and what they're doing, like the little Luke's acolytes and what they're up to in the unknown regions, because that's what they're doing so far. Like if you consider Bloodline, like that's what Leia was saying they were up to. So like, be cool to see that.
Well,
they kind of need to, really.
Just to get
exactly.
some information on these people and who the Knights of Ren are.
Rather significant,
They're
right now there's just a name
vaguely referenced in the movie. That's about it.
And then a single shot of the silhouettes.
Yeah,
that's basically
Bastards of the Knights of Ren. It's like, okay, who are those people?
Exactly. When he says that,
you'll find out later.
I know. It's like, how's that important to us? Like when he says that, it's like you, the master of the Knights of Ren. It's like, okay, that's like saying you're the master of like Unicorn Land. Like we don't know what that is.
Yeah,
do we see any other
generally
the problem? No.
That's generally one of the big problems with Force Awakens. It doesn't give us any concrete facts
or world building, which is the problem. No weight
it's just constant,
emotional or physical.
Yeah, it's just constantly hinting at other stuff, and because of that, it's like Force Awakens is. I can basically promise you that it's going to become the most disposable entry in the new series. It's like how people just, when watching the prequel trilogy, ignore Phantom Menace because they don't consider it pertinent to the story of Anakin. Force Awakens is going to be the same way. People are just going to ignore it because the story really gets going in Episode 8.
Which
hopefully,
that's what I expect is going to happen.
Probably,
we have our
considering how it's going
crossed
so far. Yeah.
So yeah.
A Knights of Ren spin-off movie could be interesting, again, if done well. Just to flush out who these people are and what their goals are, how they were founded, what their deal is. Why are they called the Knights of Ren? Who's Ren?
Right.
To me,
anything.
That could as easily
we
be a
just
part
need
of...
to know anything.
Yeah.
That could just as easily be a part of the ongoing story of Rey, though. Like if they're telling it in flashbacks, or if there's... I'm expecting a big reveal at some point.
Right. There are some reveals coming.
Yeah, so
that's what they're turning the series into.
Yeah, I don't need a whole movie about the Knights of Ren if they're going to tell the story already. But if they're not, then I don't know who's at the helm. That's a stupid decision.
Yeah.
Let's
tell you about this really interesting thing that has a huge impact on this universe, and let's do nothing with it ever.
Well, I mean, I'm not massively keen on even seeing that in the first place, because what's it going to be? Another story about how the Jedi get their ass kicked by the Sith, or the not Sith? I mean, have we not seen that a million times over? As already discussed?
That would be a bit depressing, but...
Oh, the Order is just annihilated again. Oh well. Moving on.
Yeah, well...
It's not the best thing to watch.
One idea I just came up with just now, actually, is perhaps the idea of revealing, like, just a way of salvaging the Knights of Ren and making so it's not just a Jedi Order being destroyed. Perhaps it's some really messed up, subversive scheme by Luke Skywalker himself. The Knights of Ren might all be composed of former ex-Jedi, and his idea is he basically just tasked the rest of the Knights of Ren with pretending to fall to the dark side and infiltrating the forces of Supreme Leader Snoke. And the only one who actually is a real traitor is Kylo Ren himself. All of the others are just double agents working for Luke.
I actually saw a theory on Reddit that was
pretty
fairly similar to that, which would be one hell of a reveal. It'd be a little weird, but
yeah, it's a really weird way for them to go. But I think it would be enjoyable to watch. I just love to see like him walking forward, his entire crew behind him, and then they all just turn around, Game of Thrones, Ned Stark, Goldcloak style, and just beat the crap out of them. That would never happen. Though.
That would be pretty cool.
It would never happen, though, unfortunately. But
yeah,
it would be cool.
You never know. Never know.
Speaking of that, someone asked at Celebration to Pablo Hidalgo, like, is there going to be more stories or more reveals about the Knights of Ren? He said that they might post some more databank files on some of the other characters, the people who are like standing behind Kylo, but that people should expect more stuff in Episode 8, which is what we basically surmised with our own conversation.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they have to show us something. It's like, are they going to show us something? It's like, well, yeah, they have to. It's like, it's kind of a non-point, isn't it, saying they will?
Yeah.
Because either it's going to be god-awful or they're going to, because otherwise they don't know anything.
I want to know more than nothing, which is what I feel.
Yeah. I want to know if that guy
stoking.
actually has a giant kind of mallet on the back of his head, because on the back of over his shoulder. Sorry, because there's
that
one guy
huge
that looks like he's got this huge, great big like bludgeon, and honestly, is that like us imagining it, or are we actually seeing that? It looks amusing. Oh
yeah, and then Paulo also goes on to inform how like previous iterations of Star Wars stories have integrated into the new trilogy and the new stories. Like particularly, there's this part in Force Awakens where Han Solo says, in the original script, he just says that, I told you, like when he tells Chewie that he knew the Millennium Falcon was there, he said the Outer Rim. And then Pablo was like, the Outer Rim is like, a little bit too broad. You can't just say that. So he brought in something from the Essential Atlas, and that's why Han Solo says the Western reaches is where the Millennium Falcon would be. So he's saying like stuff that isn't being informed into it. I think they said some of the stuff that was in Aftermath was informing things in The Force Awakens, and how, just how the continuity is playing into each other now, and how it's doing it, examples of it.
It is good that they're making that effort, at least, even if it is something incredibly minor.
They're making the effort for things even we don't notice. That's a good thing.
Well,
Yeah, okay.
Some effort's better than no effort.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, it's good to see anyway. Like the Western regions kind of thing is the sort of thing I like to see.
As an expanded universe hardliner, my whole attitude has always been that as soon as they retcon the expanded universe, they signed away all right to it. And every single time that they take something from the EU and plug it in, it's like I feel just kind of vaguely insulted. So it's like, oh, you retcon the EU to give yourself creative freedom to do whatever the hell you want, but instead of coming up with some new original material, you're just repurposing the stuff that came before. Why didn't you just save yourself the trouble and just adapt the material and not even bother with coming up with new stuff? But that's my expanded universe hardliner viewpoint. So hardliner, yay!
Yeah, I'm somewhere in the middle. Like I don't mind them using old stuff. I appreciate it when it works, but it's just so a lot of the times it doesn't. But this is an example where it does, because I mean, Western reaches of the Mid-Rim, yes, thank you, a little bit of world building. We have an idea of a location right now, and it's now some cohesive thing with the rest of what we know. It's good to see, and I appreciate that on their part.
Oh, and something I actually watched recently, the Dave Filoni interview. He had a 58 interview with Andy Gutierrez, who's the host of Rebels Recon, and he talked about his whole experience, like how he got hired at Lucasfilm and how his relationship with George Lucas. And one of the things he mentioned quite specifically, and it's something that we've heard time and time again, is that Lucas always made sure, or he always made it noted that he was never beholden to the expanded universe. He always said that it was there so people can live in that world and do interesting things with it, and then he would pull from it just as they're pulling from it now. So when the Legend stuff came out, Filoni made a note saying I never thought of it as differently. I'm like, yeah, that's always how it's been anyway. That's how George Lucas taught me, is that, I'm only beholden to the films and our TV series, and that was it. So I don't think it's a huge thing. Like what they're doing now isn't as huge of a jump as people make it out to be, because that's how George Lucas always, even when he brought in Ayla Secura into Episode 2, it's always just been like, oh, I like that character. Let me put her in. I mean, he didn't adapt any of her personality from the comics because she didn't really have anything to do really in the movie, but that's always been the way it's been.
Yeah, but it comes down to the whole argument for whether or not he has that right. He created the universe and he spawned it, but the EU, the concept is larger than him. Like, he's the creator of the original idea of Star Wars. Does he have the immediate right to say, no, this isn't real, this is what's real, beyond what the fans themselves decide?
Considering it's his property and his world?
Yeah, well, legally, yeah, of course he has. Legally, of course he has the right, but in terms of the actual... I mean, if someone changes Okay, if someone goes along and says a unicorn, if I say unicorn, everyone here knows exactly what we're talking about, right? But then someone comes along and tries to claim ownership of the idea of a unicorn and says, no, this is what a unicorn looks like. It doesn't suddenly change. You can't delete the unicorn and make something new.
This is
that
a
kind
really
of argument.
This is a really old argument, and it boils down to he has the legal right, but
Yeah,
he
he
can't
does.
expect people to care after he's done something.
Exactly.
And like it's the same thing with people who want like the original copies of the original films that you're never gonna get. And it's like, does he have the right not to give you those? Yeah, he does. But does he care if you care? I don't know. Like he might not. But the point is, he does have the legal right.
Oh yeah,
It's just-
I'm not trying to question the legal right. I'm talking about the
Okay.
general right of fiction in general. Like he
That's
always
why
had
a lot
that
of
whole
people-
canon thing, like the G
Yeah,
canon,
but
H canon, etc.
look how many people have turned on him over this kind of stuff, though. Like, so I mean, he's willing to sacrifice his reputation, I guess, even if he didn't realize that's what's going on. His name's kind of a joke to most people,
Yeah,
which
But-
arguably it shouldn't even be.
but I'm not saying that's the case, and it should be. But I'm just saying that when people talk about like the H canon, G canon, all the original canon, say how it was always a mess and never made any sense. Like who actually took from that? Who
Yeah,
went,
but this-
oh well, this isn't canon because this overrode it. It was always like a thing he tried to enforce over it as an element of control, but it's not.
A lot of people act like it's a new thing, overriding canon. TCW's always done that.
Oh yeah,
That was before
the
Disney
EU.
came
The EU did that a lot. Like,
Yeah.
neither side is flawless. I'm just saying that the idea behind it, the philosophy behind how they treated that universe, it was a case of expanding on a fictional concept and this world that was being built and developing and growing and expanding and being given more nuance and detail, etc. Even when some bits were good and some bits were overwriting each other, it was a mess, but it worked. Like people delved into it and no one went, oh, but this doesn't make sense. They just worked around it in their own head and they kept going. They kept flying.
Right.
And then they came
Right.
along and said, none of that ever happened, except for these bits and these bits and these bits, and we'll take that and we'll use this and we'll put this together. And this is what is actually canon, guys, because we own it and tough. But that's
But now they're making an effort to make it more streamlined.
because
those
they have
little-
to. It's
So what
just the
happened
natural
before
way of
doesn't happen
developing.
again. I think is what they're trying to go for.
Yeah, and they're not doing it in with like any malignant intent. They're not like going, "Oh, let's be evil." No, they just don't see it. Like this is a creation they own. They have the rights to move around, and they can do whatever they want with it. It's a thing for them. It's a film franchise. It's a book franchise. It's not a world. They don't look at it and see a fictional world because they're the creators. It's kind of the difference between the spectator and the creator in all of works, basically.
But I think they've been doing a pretty good job of at least attempting to iterate legend material, like they said they would at the beginning. It was like, hey, we're going to try and take things that we think should be entered, but they don't always do it the way we would want them. Like for instance, Dark Disciple, I think was like not what I wanted at all, in any capacity. Some of the stuff in Kanan is not what I wanted in any capacity.
The Grievous thing with
As
Kanan,
far
and
as
that was
I'm
completely
concerned,
pointless.
the canon version of a Sage Ventress is not a Sage Ventress. She is Katie Lucas's fanfic self-insert character.
Okay,
What? I'm confused. Did anyone else get that? I didn't get that.
I didn't get
Watch.
it either.
Do you have the season 3 DVD of Clone Wars?
The original Clone Wars you're talking
in the
about?
behind the scenes,
Yeah.
she makes a lot of comments
Yeah,
regarding.
in the
that.
behind the she
Oh,
was
okay.
Katie Lucas wrote the Night Sister trilogy, and as far as I'm concerned, she basically turned Ventress into her fanfic self-insert character. So, yeah, that's
Okay, but again, like
that's just going on how their whole integrating stuff from the EU into the films doesn't always succeed. Oftentimes it fails for precisely that reason. It's like so-and-so basically just takes over the project and shoehorns their own ideas, and the character gets screwed up. Like Quinlan Voss in TCW was a travesty.
Right. But that's the thing is like for me it's like an old issue. Like I like the original stories, so to me they still have validity, and I don't care if they're canon or not. They've changed canon or the main story or whatever on such a fundamental level when you look at it through the lens of how it's supposed to stack up against Legends, that to me when they try to reconcile it can't be reconciled. So when they borrow a character like from Legends and insert it into the new canon, it's the character in name only. In the case of Quinlan or Asajj, they're totally different. So what is it that we still care about at this point? It's to me, it's just kind of done, and no changing it.
But that's the thing; it doesn't have to be. It's only because they've decided to go with this new route. Like you can, I mean, even if they wanted to scrap we've discussed it before. They could have scrapped post Return of the Jedi, right? They could have kept all the old stuff and developed that in its own separate thing, and just made the new future going. Like it was just move forward from there. That kind of makes a vague bit of sense. But they didn't do that.
Right? They didn't do that.
Deleted everything.
Yeah, they didn't.
Which just proves a fundamental just
That's why I'm saying that
disrespect
any
to all the previous material.
adaptation. It is, or I mean, from the perspective of people that like it, but from It's a business. They want new fans.
Again, I'm not saying it doesn't
They
make
just wanna
sense
continue
in
the
that
story.
respect. I'm just saying that's what they want to do. They're looking at it from that perspective, and there's no like the people who are doing this. They're not the people who look at the world and see a world. They're not looking at people and seeing this universe. They're looking at it and seeing this franchise.
Project.
And not in a negative. I don't mean like in a detrimental way. They're not saying they don't care about it. It's just they see it through that functional. This is a thing we can.
I
do
agree.
It's a
lens.
different way of viewing.
Yeah, you're not seeing a fictional universe. You're seeing a machine of. Again, that's too bad. It's a bad description, but they care about what they're making. But they're seeing what they're making. They're not seeing the world that's breathing within their own creation.
Because it's what they're making. It's what they're making.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
and it's
they're
kind of their
focused
own, not even their fault. Anyone who creates something isn't going to really be able to appreciate it as much as someone who's spectating or coming to it after the fact because they're entering the world. They're not seeing the mechanics behind it and all the strings. It's like kind of the puppeteer show, etc.
And then going back to what Matt said, like even the EU itself, just back when it was just expanded universe or something else, there were contradictions there too. Like I think one of the ones you bring up most often is Plo Koon, and I forget which comic book, but he does something very uncharacteristic to what you thought Plo Koon was. Like
him,
that sort of
him
stuff.
bumping heads with
Probably
kids
him
or
beating
in
up
a prison.
criminals. And
Oh yeah, him,
Yeah.
it's like really being out of character in
It's
Legends
too
material.
slow
Yeah, it's
for me.
completely. He just beats it up for no reason. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like okay.
Yeah. So like I mean like I think sometimes the expanded universe gets kind of romanticized about like
Yeah, I don't mean to say it's flawless. It has
How great it was,
massive
yeah.
problems. I'm no arguing that. Like, I'm not saying it's flawless at all. But I'm just saying that we ignored those flaws because they were acceptable and understandable. Okay, we'll navigate that. And I mean, we all have our own little headcanons for getting around things that don't make sense, right?
Right,
I mean, did we
exactly.
ever go, this
No
is
matter
such
what,
a mess,
everyone's
this
always gonna
needs
have
to be
to do
fixed?
that.
Like,
Yeah.
did this need
Nowadays.
fixing? No, it didn't need fixing. People just went with it and it worked for decades.
Well, and why can't you do that now?
Well, that's my point. You can do that now, but they don't want to because they can't.
Well, yeah, but
Machine.
they haven't.
What do you mean they don't want to?
They can't.
You're saying they don't want us to have our own?
No, they're
canon?
saying they don't want to have to try and deal with that kind of machine. They don't want to have to go through and delve and thread and make all of this woven tapestry. They want to start from scratch. Like it's like they do with comics. They start from scratch and they develop, and then they forget the fact that 10 minutes down the line they're going to have exactly the same problem with handling it.
Well, what would you do though? Like if they said to you years ago, "We're doing episode 7," what are you going to do? What would you do?
I'm not sure, but you can. I know for
Well-
a fact that you can have a self-contained story in the universe they had working. Because people were making the content even back then. It just wasn't in film format, and it wouldn't have been able to connect with the saga as a whole, maybe. And that's why I can kind of understand the idea of deleting post Return of the Jedi stuff, like in the future, maybe. But just start from Beyond Thrawn and redo that. Like then, of course, you've got the age problem with the actors. But again, that's the only other
Right.
problem. Take away that. That's it. You can do whatever you want. That could have
But
worked.
there's a lot of logistics involved.
Yeah.
Doing. Yeah.
But yeah.
But anyway, yeah. We'll lead into that into Thrawn later when we talk
Next
about it.
news.
The
segment.
much easier story is the dad John Williams coming back for episode 8.
Who
Yeah,
that's
could
good.
have
I mean-
guessed?
It's again
I
another
never would
non-news
have
story.
imagined.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
well,
we discussed
I-
this last time, didn't we? Actually,
Yeah.
I think
Well,
'cause
the
he said
thing
he
is
wanted to bring
that
Los Angeles
apparently
stuff.
John Williams just provided an explanation for why he wants to come back, and apparently it's because he's so into the character of Rey that he doesn't want anyone else scoring her scenes, and
Which is very funny because that's the only theme that
The
actually
only
had.
theme.
Yeah.
that's the only
And
thing
Purple.
in that
Danny.
movie that was actually
Yeah.
memorable. So
I mean, again, it's all
That's-
good.
that's
It's just
good,
all
I
kind of
guess.
ambient,
Yeah.
with the exception of her stuff.
yeah,
Yeah. So I hope to see more from that.
Yeah. Personally, I think that what they should do with the future films is perhaps have John Williams working in collaboration with someone else, like how the Dark Knight was a collaboration between Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard. The two of them just handling different aspects of the score. I figure that's what they should start doing here. It's like bring in someone else because,
It could.
I feel like they didn't tell him enough about the world for him to care enough or to be able to square it properly.
I think so too.
Because-
Because I think that it was in such secrecy. Like even
Yeah.
like when he was talking about, I remember they were asking about like Rey's parents or whatever. He's like, "Oh, I think it's probably Luke. Luke is her dad." Like he didn't. He was just speculating like everybody else speculates.
Yeah.
You know, like he's on the same playing field, so he doesn't know how to play those themes. You know, he doesn't know what
Yeah.
the end.
Like I remember seeing footage of George Lucas, of all people, telling him that he liked like the whole Duel of the Fates song. Oh, this is good, and it leads into where I'm going in the third film. And like he's talking with him about whether or not this works. I feel like not a lot of that kind of stuff went on this time around.
And you lose the thematic
Unlikely.
kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Through line. There we go. Thematic through
Yeah.
line that we're going to not have in the trilogy now. I mean, they may pull it off anyway because you can pull it off making it up as you go along. It's just it's so much harder, and you kind of need luck.
That's those creative muscles.
But does anyone else think? I mean, I know it's expensive, but does anyone else think that they should have multiple musicians scoring for compositions in general? Like, because different moods, different themes, different characters and stuff. I've always thought
That'd
that
be
would
cool.
make-
You don't see that a lot in Hollywood.
Yeah,
but
you don't. Again, it's
Yeah.
expensive, which is probably one of the big reasons. But
I'd be okay with it, but then again, I've always liked his solo work before.
Same
this,
here,
this
yeah.
is the last time around that
Yeah.
I've only noticed it just now.
same. And one of my greatest soundtracks of all time, or my favourite, is stuff by Howard Shore for the Lord of the Rings series, and that was all one person. So there's a merit to both. But I feel like
Fantastic.
having maybe one controller and a bunch of different people coming up with the ideas and the themes for different specific things and linking it all together, that's a cool idea.
At the very least, it would give it some diversity and give more people more chances to work.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want to work on Star Wars of all things?
Yeah, I mean, Alexander Desplat is on Rogue One, and we heard a little bit of his newness in the Rogue One trailer. And everybody does call him kind of like a poor man's John Williams.
Poor man.
Just, the thing with the Rogue One trailer for me and his music, it's that kind of hanging, lilting, ding,
Yeah.
ding.
He
Like,
did the
that's
same
the
thing with
thing he
Deathly
brings to
Hallows.
Star. Yeah, that's the thing he brings to Star Wars for me. Like, is that you don't really get that from the other films so much. It's more like a. This one's kind of more of a single tone, which is cool. I like it for the Rogue trailer.
Yeah, I actually like because I didn't care too much for his Deathly Hallows thing because he took over. Like there was rumors that John Williams would come back for Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2, but then it was him, and I was like, no, not this guy. He's so his personality. I didn't feel like he injected his own personality into the score. Like it was just it was just always generic something else. But I like so far what he's doing with Rogue One, and I liked. That's going off. I'm talking about Harry Potter now, but I liked
the magic.
Super better than what Alexander was doing. But yeah, whatever. But going on to Rogue One, Gareth Edwards did divulge some of how he came up with the Death Troopers and stuff. So here's his quote. One of the great things you can do when you make Star Wars is you can go to the Lucasfilm archives. You get to go through all the different objects and stuff. The woman who runs the place gets really bored, I think, because every person like me is going, is there a Millennium Falcon? And she's like, yes, there's a Millennium Falcon. The actual one that was using the shots, there's no other one, right? Yes, that's the one. And then it's like, this is the actual X-Wing? Yes. Is this the actual lightsaber? Yes. The whole day goes like this, where you go through every single object you can think of. And then at the very back of the room are all these drawers that are full of Joe Johnson and Ralph McQuarrie originals. The original art, actual paintings that they showed at the studio to get Star Wars made. And on some of these images, there were these stormtroopers that were really tall and thin, and they looked so cool and athletic. When you put armor on a stormtrooper, they look like NFL players. They were sleek and SAS. I don't know. SAS, is that like a form of military that I'm not familiar
British
with?
Secret Service.
Oh, okay, that's what.
Secret Service? No, armed Secret Service.
Yeah, he says that they look like that when they put that on.
Special
So
ops,
we thought
basically.
we tried to find some 6-7 foot tall people who are really thin and try to figure out a new stormtrooper that can actually hit its targets with guns. And they became eventually the Death Troopers. So yeah, the Death Troopers basically are just elite stormtroopers that can actually hit things.
Yeah.
I've always hated that whole stormtroopers can't hit things. I always liked them when they were terrifying. Like in the
Been a
Thrawn
cliche
trilogy, they were a
Yeah.
lot more terrifying than
Well,
anything
the
else.
thing is that when you actually just go by the movies, until Return of the Jedi, when you actually stop and think about it, the reason why the stormtroopers aren't hitting anything is because they have a vested interest in not hitting anything. Because in both A New Hope and in Empire, when they're actually fighting the stormtroopers, it's specifically down to the fact that the bad guys want the good guys to get away so they can follow them back to their base and capture them later. And in fact, the one time we actually do, when the stormtroopers first appear attacking Princess Leia's ship in A New Hope, they're mowing down rebels like they're nothing. They're just tearing through them. And that's how the stormtroopers should be all the time. And then, Return of the Jedi basically screwed all that up with the bloody Ewoks.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll never understand the idea behind that. How did that ever get cleared?
To me, the Ewoks would have worked if they were like 10 times more brutal. Like,
They're
covered
supposed to be
spike pits. and
Wookiees
stuff.
at first.
Wookiees.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those
Wookiees,
are
yeah.
the
Yeah.
Wookiees. Yeah.
Couldn't find enough tall people. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what I'm convinced happened.
yeah.
Then she's supposed to be Kashyyyk, but
Yeah, I mean, it would have worked better. Fit with Chewbacca as well, rather than just bring something else. But we got what we got. Again, the old stuff wasn't perfect, or isn't perfect in that case.
they weren't. Okay, and then going off of Rogue One stuff, we can go into the Rogue One trailer itself.
Rebels.
Oh my goodness! Sorry, Rebels.
In the
Did
Rebels
I
trailer
skip a bunch of
itself.
stuff? See, Rebels.
Season
Sorry,
3.
guys. I meant Rebels season 3. Pretend I said Rebels season 3.
I heard Rebels. Everyone else was just mishearing.
Yeah. Right?
Convincing.
You didn't hear nothing.
So where do we start with the Rebels trailer then? It's a bit of an eclectic
right?
opening for it, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we can start with the opening, and it opens with Kanan being blind, and that's cool. I mean, I hope that he struggles with his blindness. I don't want him to be like super God mode automatically, which I think. Because right now I am doing a Kanan matchup on my channel, and one of the things I kind of noticed with him is that he does really well when he's forced to delve into the Force. Yeah. Like, first it was when Ezra was supposedly dead. He thought he died. He lost his Padawan, all because of. So he was like, you know what, I had nothing to fear anymore. So he got he started delving deep into the Force, and that's how he's able to take on the Inquisitor. Then again, he loses his sight in season 2, and then he faces Maul, and he finally taps into the Force like he should be doing all the time, and then he was able to throw him off the ledge and that kind of thing. So I'm hoping that he can maybe sustain that sort of thing, and now that he's blind, he'll be able to sustain that trust in the Force that he needs to do to to show him being good. That's when he's best, is when he's doing that.
Definitely, yeah.
He would be a lot more dependent on it now because
exactly.
It's not a temporary measure. His eyes are gone.
Yeah, it has.
Wait! I just realized something.
Go.
The whole Thrawn thing with Grand Admiral Thrawn in Rebel Season 3, they're probably going to bring a Yasala Miri and have Kanan be exposed to that, breaking his connection, and he basically just falls down because, oh my god, I can't see, my connection is cut off.
It is something I thought, yeah, that's going to be an interesting aspect to it. But go back to rewinding from Thrawn for a minute, and going back to Kanan. What I want to see, we discussed it a little bit last time when we talked about it, Antoine, on the previous podcast. I want to see the struggle. Yeah, you say you want to see him struggle. But I feel like opening with him having to take a back seat, he's kind of being benched by the team, and the team are kind of handling things and kind of leaving him in the background a bit. I want to start there and move from that. We see a bunch of scenes where just simple scenes like he's reaching for a cup and misses and drops it. Someone comforts him about it, stuff like that.
I would love that.
And then just have sit on that for a good long time. Let that breathe. Because that's the most character development you're going to get from him in that blind stuff. Everything else is going to move into the cliche territory, which is fine. You get past that bit, develop that beautifully, and then you move on into the whole power side of things, like you say, where he gets spiritual. He starts going, "Well, okay, I can sense things. Like I've had this before, but now I'm seeing so much more clarity, etc."
Exactly.
That will be such an interesting way of taking his character for me, because I really like Kanan as a character. He's one of my favorites in Rebels, and he's not the sort of character I usually get behind.
I'm completely the same as you. When it first started, I was I really hated him. I was not down for him at all. You were pretty
against him in the beginning.
Even when they had the first trailer and they were talking about he's the cowboy Jedi, and I was like, fuck that, and then but then the season progressed, and then they had the Kanan comments, and I was like, oh my god, I actually like this guy. And then the season finale is what really got me into to Kanan, and I think he kind of took a back seat in season 2 a little bit.
Yeah, he did.
I think they could have did a little bit more with him there, but they were kind of focused more on Ezra, but that's fine. But yeah, he's now I think he's my favorite character in Rebels. If I think, of the main crew, I think for sure.
Yeah, no, I really liked it.
I'd agree with that.
I didn't dislike him to start with. He was just kind of one of those bland characters for me, as they mostly were, to be honest. But yeah, he definitely gets a lot better as he goes along. I like how he doesn't mess up all the time. He has his stuff together. You rarely see that in protagonists. Mm-hmm. And it's refreshing. I do like that.
Yeah, and I like how you're saying that she's probably going to take a back seat in season 3, because there is a scene that they came out with, and it was Sabine, Zeb, and Ezra just by themselves. There was no Kanan there, and that's going to be interesting because of where Ezra is right now. He's not going to have his master watching over him all the time, telling him not to do that. And we see when he's taking on those stormtroopers for that brief moment.
Of that,
we see how aggressive he's fighting these stormtroopers, but he's super powerful when doing it. But he's look at this, my master kept on holding me back. I'm going to keep doing this kind of thing all the time, And I think that's a really good way.
Going to keep going and going and.
Yeah, and it's a very natural way of doing it because he doesn't have his master there, not because just in some plot driven, doesn't make sense thing. It's it makes sense. He's been disabled right now. He has to be independent and fight for himself.
I'm of two minds in that regard, because on one side I like that's a good way of taking Ezra's character and giving it a kind of the next generation a kind of look into why the dark side is something you need to stay away from, why it's tempting, why you can. There are benefits to it in your short-term idea, but then why you should steer away from it in the long run. But on the other hand, we've seen that before. That's a little bit cliche. I want to do something new with it. I'm kind of like hoping maybe they'll do it great, maybe they won't. But either way, I see why they're doing it, because the next generation, the Star Wars fans that are watching this show, as kids, it's a good story for them to see, I think. But the most important thing we need to talk about is, what do you think about Ezra's haircut?
Oh yeah, right. We didn't talk about that.
Yeah,
was fine.
well,
I personally
everyone
was fine with it,
designs in general, really.
but I don't think his outfit matches his haircut. Like I'm cool with the crew cut look, but it's like, but you still have that orange jumpsuit, which is like so clashing.
Guys, I'm so utterly ashamed to make this reveal, but I recently got my hair cut.
Oh yes, that's right.
I don't like it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I look
Doctor Who
like
reference.
him. I'm sorry, but I still don't really care for Ezra. So the fact that I suddenly have his hair is just like, no.
It's peeping in.
Yeah, no, I prefer the long hair.
Next thing you know, I'm going to start wearing orange jumpsuits and carrying a green lightsaber.
One of the things I liked about
is
the
something
original
else.
style was, What, sorry?
I was say, speaking of lightsaber, it looks like Luke's design.
Yeah, they've changed it a bit, haven't they?
Yeah, if you look at it, I mean, it's not his blaster saber thing.
I'm actually kind of glad that they did dump the blaster saber thing, because it was one of those lightsaber designs that was clearly intended to sell toys, whereas it's like,
It's gimmicky.
yeah, it's like, make your lightsaber something personal, but don't turn it into that. It should be a work of art, not some fancy multi-tool.
To be fair, I
I
liked
find
it.
kind of perplexing, huh?
So I liked it. It's one of those few gimmicks that I don't actually have a problem with, because, like you say about work of art, you're right. But this is Ezra. This isn't a full-fledged Jedi.
Yeah,
This
that's
is-
exactly what I was gonna say. Ready? I agree with that.
I
this
will
is-
concede that it's appropriate for some Jedi who's just starting out and who hasn't really gotten into the philosophy and is still like, yeah, sure, I'll carry a lightsaber, but I think I should have a gun too. But still.
It's one of those personal opinion things, I think, on that one.
I don't watch Rebels, but I've seen the fight with Kanan and the Inquisitor, where like he's using it interchangeably as a blaster and a lightsaber. Doesn't Ezra have a line where he says, "I never would have thought of doing that"?
Yeah, that's what I was about to
Doing
mention.
that
It's the only thing I hate about it.
It's not why you would have built it. Yeah, I mean, so that's always the biggest problem I've had with it, but whatever.
Yeah, it's the only thing I dislike about the idea. Is like, why would you be stupid enough to not realize that's the thing you can do?
Yeah.
Like, it really took Kanan pointing that out to you.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I disliked about it. But apart from that, I thought it was a cool idea.
Coming from
I'll
Ezra
miss it.
specifically, not
Yeah,
like
from Ezra
on its own,
specifically.
it's kind of like, come on now,
Yeah.
but like coming from Ezra, I think that's
it
where
takes
it's appropriate.
it takes a certain kind of Jedi or Force user in general to have that weapon and have it feel not gimmicky, and I feel like it fit for Ezra. Just he didn't really use much of it. That's the only problem.
Right, he never actually made use of the double. Yeah,
He's like, oh, I never thought of that. It's like, oh, well, great. So our protagonist is an idiot. Good to know.
It was like a dumb kid thing to say, like, I'll try spinning. That's a good trick.
Yeah, it was exactly that.
You know?
Yeah.
and then
Well-
is that okay? Do you guys see Bespin here, or is that just me?
What? Sorry.
The
What?
the orangey cloud place that the Imperials are on.
Well, they like to include Lando, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay, because I was
Could
like,
be.
that looks very much like Bespin to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a thematic place, isn't it? I mean, arguably one of the greatest Star Wars moments of all time happened in Bespin, so I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if they wanted to
Yeah.
kind of feed off that.
They just walk by the corridor where Vader and Luke fight later.
Oh God, no! I hope they don't do that. They need to stay away from that kind of thing.
Nothing that
about
crazy.
Kanan's all like, something about this place seems kind of eerie.
Something's gonna happen here, man.
Yeah.
Something big. Something big.
Before we move on, and I know this is incredibly minor, but something I found kind of interesting is the fact that they chose to change the color of Ezra's blade, which the reason that felt weird to me is because something they've really tried to hammer in with the Clone Wars and also with Rebels is the fact that the whole when you get your crystal, it starts out blank, and then when you kind of earn it, quote unquote, that's how it changes color because part of you goes into it. If they're keeping with that sort of theme, why is it green now? Why did it
I
change?
think maybe the idea is that it changed colors because he himself has changed.
Well, that's what I thought too. That could be a
Yeah.
possibility, but like, I mean, how is green more evil than blue?
Right, I don't get that either.
It's
Like, I don't
more
know.
if they're
Maybe-
going for a
If anything,
grassroots idea.
blue
It's
is
more
evil than
consular.
green, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's more consular, and if it's going for the whole force power development, then I can kind of see where they maybe will go for that. But I don't think they're thinking on that level. I think they're thinking, oh, he needs a change. Let's just change it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's that too.
I
I
was
think
gonna
it's
say
more
that
just like
too.
give him green.
Yep. Give him
Yeah.
one.
I
Why
don't
not?
mind it. It's just kind of perplexing.
Again, they're thinking,
It would be
oh,
better
we need a
if
change
they
for this
gave it an
character.
in-universe reason.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
I
that they're
hope
doing
they
that.
would. Yeah, I don't know if they will either, but I hope they would do that. You know?
It goes
Maybe-
back to what I was
maybe-
saying earlier.
Oh, maybe you just construct his new. Oh, that'd be it. No, that wouldn't make
Go,
sense.
go, do it.
I was about to say maybe because in the Kanan comics, Deepa Billaba has a green lightsaber, and I was thinking to myself, maybe Ezra still had her old crystal. And he's like, here, while you're building your lightsaber. Well, he could be all like, oh, sorry, we can't risk going back to the temple now that's taken over by Sith. Here's my old master's crystal.
That could work. And I mean, Deepa Billaba had her own little rage problems, so it would make sense for it to feed into him maybe then.
Did she though?
Thematically. In this one, I don't know, but of course that. Yeah.
In this one, they haven't really specifically said what went down, but
they just changed
it's not as it is. It's not about. It doesn't seem like it's dark side. It's more about her just being a screw up.
Yeah,
okay.
that just.
Yeah, I know. I hate it. Lie.
It's the fact that there's such an easy one they could have just fed in. Like when you did the review, all they had to do was just say it was. Not even say it, just imply that it was that.
That's all you need to do.
It.
Just imply.
And we would have been able to draw on it, but no.
Later in the comic, they even mention Harun Kal.
Yeah,
really? They change it so that instead of there being Carvasser, it's General Grievous who's there.
Yeah,
basically.
Which is kind of sad. Like TCW General Grievous beat her up twice. That's kind of sad. That's kind of sad for Deepa.
I know, exactly. That just it makes me, and it sucks because even in the canon source book, this new source book, they have it that Mace is her master, and then when she comes out of her coma, they make no mention. They just say like some words to each other. They don't mention like, oh man, I'm so glad you're back, or like I was like afraid for like have them have a moment, have a master apprentice moment.
Mace Windu really needs moments now that you've deleted all the EU.
Oh my god, yes,
he's just a blank slate now. Like give him something.
He's way more uninteresting in TCW and the films. Like
because even with TCW, they didn't do anything with him. They? He just kind of got like
he's not interesting at all.
No, they need to do something with him. But again, if they'd only done it in that scene, it would have been a bit out of character in that respect. So I mean, maybe they went that route. They probably didn't even think about it, but maybe that's why they went that route. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's just a shame. Great shame.
Moving on to the trailer.
Yes, moving on. Yeah. I mean, they have Fulcrum's thing. I don't know what that's all about. I mean,
Fulcrum's back. And they're bringing Wedge in, which is cool because I like Wedge. So that's
really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I thought at first it was Ezra like pretending to be Wedge, like he does Wedge with the names, but it's actually Wedge. But like, I would like to see his face.
Yeah, it would be cool. Probably say that.
Unless that is his face at 35, like before the scene happens.
Maybe.
Could be. But it's cool. I like to see him get more screen time. So that's always nice.
Or
which ties into Aftermath because they mentioned that he was recruited by Fulcrum in that.
That's true.
It's just who is Fulcrum this time? Perhaps someone from TCW that Ahsoka knew. I don't know.
Maybe she created if it's new person.
Maybe she created the Fulcrum identity with somebody.
Yeah, that'd be actually pretty dope if they went that route. That Fulcrum is like anonymous, like it's several people, not just one person.
It would be the best thing they could do as a rebel movement.
Yeah, that'd be actually pretty dope, actually, because I don't like that. I didn't like the ambiguous ending. I mean, we talked about that already, but I hate the ambiguous ending of.
Maybe Fulcrum really will. Maybe she really will be Bo-Katan this time.
Oh my God. There were so many theories for that.
Oh god, just anything Star Wars. Just give one person one hint, and that'll be it. There will be an entire fictional universe just built on that hint that will then be deleted when we find out what is actually happening.
So that's with Wedge.
A bunch of images of them fighting. I mean, we get a little bit of Kanan with his saber, and they're with Rex.
Mm-hmm. They're fighting battle droids, which is interesting.
Yeah, good to see the return of battle droids.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Speaking of returns, Hondo's back.
Hondo is back.
Always entertaining.
We got some more Mandalorian storylines. I think Sabine needs a lot more development for sure.
Oh yeah, she needs some in this series.
She could be extremely interesting, and she's not.
Yeah, she's definitely just going by her premise. She's the best character. Like, but taking away that, she's got nothing at the moment. It's a shame because there's so much you can build on. Mm-hmm. Especially considering they have to reintroduce the Mandalorians to the fandom now.
Right.
Not fandom, wrong word. To the universe. The canon. There we go.
And how that works out, and it'd be great if they have some Boba Fett shit in there too. Like, come on. They're putting everybody else in there. Like, let's get like at least like just a one episode where you cross paths with Boba Fett, like he's got a bounty on somebody.
Maybe.
How old will he be at this point?
He would be in his 20s. I'm not sure what 20s he would be, but
early 20s. Yeah.
He is.
He's no good to me, Dad.
He's a little bit older than Luke. So Luke right now is 15. So yeah, he'd be in his early 20s. He'd be early 20s right now. Yeah, early or mid 20s. Coming up. He'd be coming up right now.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the midsection of the trailer, of course, is
The big
Tarkin
reveal.
and Homegirl, who we don't know who her name is yet.
Probably
so
gonna-
talk to Tarkin about what's going on.
Like, hey man, these rebels are getting out of hand. Can we get somebody who can actually win, please?
Which Tarkin should have been, brought in at this point, really, or Vader.
Which
or
he did for
anyone.
like an episode, and then they
building
Yeah,
a Death
they just
Star.
toss him aside
Busy.
like all of their villains. I get the feeling she's going to be a very very much a non-character.
Oh yeah, I think she's
Because she's just gonna. There's no way she can own a scene with Thrawn in the room. Let's face it. Provided they're
Never
doing
know.
well, anyway.
That's a weird way to introduce him.
Yeah, it's like, here, can I
Have
bring
somebody
someone
who
in?
doesn't matter, like, come in and introduce him.
Well, I
One
wouldn't be
thing, one
surprised.
little detail I did notice in a lot of the Thrawn segments in the trailer is that the background music was done with an organ, and I'm just like, are you kidding me? You're doing Dracula music for Thrawn.
Yeah, it did feel a bit off. Like, he's not.
That's the
don't
sort
know.
of music you would use for a Sith character. Someone like Thrawn, you'd want something very classical sounding.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want
Oh my
Dracula
God.
music.
Orchestral, classical.
classical would be freaking like just piano. Just have a
Yeah,
piano
just
playing.
just or violin.
Just think about that, guys.
As he's just sitting, like reclining, like I want the first sort of scene or first breathing room we get for him just to be sort of a quiet scene as he leans back, just reclines and just looks around his room. It's like, and then like a montage behind, like where we see the rebel just getting absolutely annihilated, as he just examines, like, oh look, this species is art, and then you see that species' admiral all getting wiped out, and then oh look, this species is art. That kind of, we need breathing moments like that for him, because that's his character. That's why he's so great. It's that kind of cool thematic element tied with the realistic reason why he's such a threat in the universe.
Yeah, speaking of art, at 232, there's a lot of stuff I think here that can be discussed. Like for me, mostly, I like that. I don't know what that Mandalore is that's on the left side there, but I mean, I would really hope it would be the Ultimate or anybody like from the Old Republic time period. It would be awesome if they just
The
gave
Ultimate,
just
the
a little.
Ultimate.
It looks like him.
Just a little hint. I know it looks like the Ultimate. That's why I was like, maybe.
Maybe.
Let me do.
Well, they did acknowledge in TCW that there was a conflict between the Jedi and the Mandalorians, so could easily just little.
Just
tidbit
keep giving
that-
hints. That's all you need to do. You don't have to do.
Yeah.
Just give hints. That's all you need. Just some name drops there. That's all you really need. But that, to me, that's probably the most interesting. I mean, they also have stuff with Cham and Hera. Like they have a family portrait. There's some cave paintings, which I'm guessing is Twi'lek cave paintings of some sort. Not sure how that's going to factor in.
What's the thing on the right? There's like a small pillar with like a creature on. Oh, is that just going to be the calamari actually? On the right.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's like a fleshy thing on top of a pillar. It could just be a stuffed
Oh,
creature or it could be a
yeah.
calamari.
Yeah.
And he's
It's
also,
in the
he's also
room
got
with
the,
him.
he's also
It's
got the
not a
Inquisitor's
hologram.
mask and stuff, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a hologram. So. And he also has the Temple Guard
Yeah.
mask there too. So that's probably him doing his research on Kanan.
I just hope they don't make it cliche. Don't make him like, yes, this is looking at that insignia of from Hera, not Hera, Sabine is not going to get him anywhere. Like he researches historical cultural art, not graffiti on the side, and not to diminish the art of graffiti. I just mean like that doesn't speak towards tactical or like mechanical thinking. It's just an expression of a single person. Like he needs to be reviewing the art of the admirals and the captains and stuff.
I
Right.
think it's I think it's also is one of those things where it's like you said, reviewing the art of the admirals and the captains. It's like, and that might actually be kind of interesting idea though. It's like perhaps what if he starts analyzing, say, Ezra specifically? Because I could see Ezra being a tagger.
Yeah, I could do. I mean, we've got a picture of Ezra right
But
there on the
it's
forefront.
Sabine that is the tag.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sabine is the tagger, but he kind of it seems similar.
He might as well.
And he's in the picture.
Maybe.
And you've got some Hera hints, not specifically of Hera necessarily, but
Speaking of Ezra and Sabine, they kind of like put their relationship on halt, like in season 2. Like I remember season 1, they were kind of like hinting, or at least he had a crush on her.
Yeah, it was
but then
kind
they
of
never
crush
really
thing,
made
wasn't
mention of it in the season 2. But then they had a scene coming up where they had to fight the Mandalorians, where they kind of like hug each other because he has to like get on her jetpack or whatever, and they have like a little bit of a moment. Like, oh hey, yeah, I kind of forgot that they had a thing. Like when that happened, I was like, oh yeah. They are supposed to kind of. I mean, well, at least Ezra has a thing for her.
yeah, that always felt weird. I mean, him having a crush, fine, but anything more than that, and I was like, what, really? Isn't like she a bit old? Like, it
Yeah, I
seems a
think
bit-
he's 15. Well, he's might be 16
That's
now.
nothing new at all to Star Wars. Anakin and Padme.
Oh yeah, but
Pat,
who else?
Padme is like 10 years
Can we
old.
not make reference to Anakin and Padme when we're talking about the potential
Hey,
sexual
hey,
relationship?
Hey, at
That's
least
creepy now.
at least it's a better love story than Twilight.
Yeah.
Actually,
true.
my attitude is that the Anakin Padme relationship is what would actually happen with the Twilight love story, with the two couples in a codependent relationship where they basically worship each other. It would lead to domestic violence. Like,
Oh yeah, like I think that would realistically, and it kind of went that way a little bit in TCW. They kind of did that when
That was actually
Yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah, it was interesting why they took it.
yeah,
Yeah,
the crush.
Dude
What's the
came in,
guy's
yeah.
name? Oh, what was his name? The guy that she used to date. Oh,
I
I
don't
can't remember the name. The senator,
in
the
the
senator
bank,
guy.
in the bank episodes, yeah.
Yeah. And then, like, for a second there, Anakin was getting kind of, like, abusive, like, a little
Yeah.
bit. I mean, it was mostly with words, but, like, in a not children's show, it could have been,
I'm
Well,
not
he
even
didn't
a-
grab the guy by the neck, like, and pull him up. Like, this is Anakin at his
A
worst.
bit,
Meanwhile, she
I'm not a
persists in defending
TCW
him.
fan, but I thought that was some of their better writing, actually.
Yeah, it was brave. It was a risky move because no kid is going to be that invested in that kind of story, but they did it and it paid off.
And eventually, I mean, that does happen. That culminates in episode 3 where he does, choke her out. I mean, that's right there. That's straight up abuse right there,
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
just a bit.
Like, if I'm not wrong, they built that out of the stupid sand talk when they were on Naboo, right? That's the guy she's talking about when she's reminiscing about. Yeah, so there's that. Like, it was
When they were in the
actually
field and
made
she
that
said this one
moment
guy,
mean
yeah.
something. Yeah,
And he was like, stop talking about that. Like, I don't want to talk about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's a jealous little dude, yeah, that's for sure.
Yep.
And freaking Darth Maul, like, can we get rid of him?
Yeah.
I know. It's like,
I
I'm
can't get
over
over
Bringing
it.
back
We're over it.
yeah.
I mean,
Bringing
who
Maul
isn't at
back
this
was
point?
such a cluster.
They're not done selling Darth Maul toys.
Nope.
They are not.
And apparently Ezra's not done buying his shit either because
Yeah, what the
he's
hell?
Yeah.
still lapping it up because he's I want to protect Kanan. I need to be stronger to protect Kanan. It's like he will not move past that thought. That'll be what they ride on the entire season, and I don't want it.
Protecting.
We've got to protect
Yeah.
Kanan. Got to be more powerful. Kanan's holding me back, and I've got to protect him. I've got to go this way. I've got to do this because it's for the greater good. It's like because we haven't seen that as a path to the dark side a million and one times.
Yeah.
But I do like the idea of combining a Sith and a Jedi holocron. I like to see
That
what
was interesting.
what
That
they're
was
going to do with that.
I'm curious to see where that leads. Another thing that I was actually
It's one thing I find interesting from a thematic standpoint, but from a mechanical and technological standpoint, I'm like, what?
Yeah, it doesn't actually. That's
It's-
exactly what I was about to say. It doesn't make any sense
It's
if you
like,
think about it.
it's
Well,
like
I
trying
mean-
to combine two Jedi holocrons is like me trying to combine these two data keys. It does not work.
Here's the thing: I get where you're coming from, totally, from just like a data standpoint. But they're also with holocrons. It's also a spiritual thing as well. So it's not just. It's kind of the melding between computer and spirit.
Yeah, but it is the spiritual equivalent of data, though. Let's face it. I mean, they're
Right,
literal
exactly.
mentors
Even-
with stories and history and lessons to teach. Going,
Yeah.
I think the
also
big
have
question.
to say that the spiritual side of things actually makes the idea even worse because the spiritual essence of a Jedi holocron and the spiritual essence of a Sith holocron are completely incompatible. They wouldn't
Which I think is
meld
exactly
together.
why it would be
Why
interesting.
did it explode?
They freaking annihilate. They
Which is what
destroy
happens in
each
the
other.
trailer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
I
nothing left. You wouldn't get anything from trying to do that.
But I don't watch the show. But I think the big question is, what is Maul's goal? Like, what is he expecting to happen?
right.
Like, so if he's coming from the perspective that you're imagining, Connor, then yeah, it's fantastically stupid. But if he has a reason for doing this, who knows?
Could be. Which
Maybe he just
actually
wants to
leads-
detonate a freaking bomb in the Jedi's face and kill them.
Maybe.
If it's that simple,
it won't be that simple. But yeah, if it is, that's stupid.
Um,
We don't know his
well,
end
that-
goal yet, though, do we? Sorry,
No,
I'm
we
sorry.
don't know what. I don't really care what he wants.
He doesn't have an
I
end
want.
goal.
I want him to
the,
just
the, the thing I'm
careless.
expecting is I need an apprentice to help take over the Emperor. It's like that's basically it. I'm pretty sure.
probably.
And that'll be how he tempts Evan, how he tempts Ezra. It will be like, oh, come on, we need to get stronger so we can defeat the Empire.
Personally,
if he
one
honestly
thing I
thinks
will
he has a shot at
say,
that,
one thing I will say about TCW, well, Maul in Rebels that actually disappointed me just a little bit, is because it's the fact that he wasn't in charge of the Mandalorians. Because when we left him in TCW and in Son of Dathomir, he was still in charge of the Mandalorians. So I was expecting them to have some plotline where Maul is some badass Mandalorian warlord rampaging through the Outer Rim, and the Rebels are in a position where they have to make an alliance with him because they need his support. Unfortunately, they're making their alliance with a bloodthirsty Sith Lord, and that would be a whole massive, complicated thing. But I gave them too much credit. They're not going to do something that clever.
Well, they are going to explain the stuff with Maul and the Mandalorians in the Ahsoka novel. So we do have that to figure out what happened with Maul. Because that's kind of like that's the reason why they know each other, first off, Ahsoka and Maul. And it's also the reason possibly why he's no longer with them. Because I think Ahsoka's going to probably dismantle it or whatever happens.
Could be.
Yeah, that Warlord idea is really interesting, though, because not only would that give them a kind of overarching... not theme, but story they could work with and interconnect episodes and even seasons. But that warlord thing would be perfect for Thrawn, because a warlord rising up and taking over a large portion of the region would be exactly the sort of problem they send someone like Tarkin or Thrawn to deal with. Because the whole warlords splitting off into different sections and fighting amongst themselves is what Thrawn did in the original canon. He unified them. He took the scattering Imperial factions and unified them and turned them into the Imperial remnant that fought back. It was kind of his key thing. So it would be cool.
What I was thinking Maul's plan would have been like he would have wanted to join with the Rebel Alliance and then find some way to take over and basically just turn himself into President Coin from the Hunger Games series.
Oh yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yeah. Basically, leader of the revolutionary group who secretly just wants to install himself as the new dictator. And that would be his motivation, but instead it's like, I don't know what he wants, I don't know what his goals are. It just seems like he wants to turn Ezra to the dark side for his shits and giggles, and that's about it.
Probably just to kill the Emperor. I mean, I doubt they give him any more motivation than that.
Yeah, I think it's just the Emperor aspect of it, because, and that's Maul kind of anyway, so. What are, these spirits? I mean, they look like Night Sister spirits to me, but they seem like they're at a Sith temple, though, so I don't know what's going on.
It's another thing that we really should be done with by now.
What, Night Sisters?
Yeah. You think that we'd be done with them by now, don't you?
I thought we'd be done because they're kind of like dead.
Yeah, they've killed them so many times now.
Yeah, seriously. But, well, actually, before we get into the Night Sister thing, there's a scene that happens earlier where Kanan is talking to this giant creature that comes out of whatever planet.
That comes after.
I thought it was Thawne,
That's after, but yeah.
No, I thought it was that then. Oh, no, sorry, I was thinking about the different... Sorry.
The thing that called itself the Bendu, which personally kind of disappoints me because they're just kind of continuing on with the whole thing from the Mortis trilogy in TCW of how the Force has physical gods and embodiments of its aspects. And that to me is one of the dumbest ideas because the whole idea of there being physical gods and embodiments, like that is way too much of a Western religious ideal. Like that's a sort of thing that you find in Greek mythology or in Christianity, with each aspect being embodied by a specific figure. Eastern religion and mythology doesn't really have that so much. It's more like they're just energies that exist and do their own thing and have no mind. They just follow their nature. Whereas now it's like, oh, we're personifying the gray area of the Force. It's called the Bendu, and it's a big troll creature.
Well, I'm actually wondering whether or not they're actually going to... Sorry. I'm just wondering if they're going to take cues from the actual Bendu sages from the EU, which, for those of you who don't know, the Bendu were a group of Force wielders who actually existed before the Jedi Order, who helped found the original Jedi Order millions and millions of years before the Battle of Yavin, who actually continued on even up until the era past the Empire. They have a different viewpoint on the Force, almost kind of like the Night Sisters. They're a different version of that. Their ideals were even... A lot of their ideals, actually, such as the whole robes and stuff, were actually woven into the Jedi Order itself. But they viewed the Force as less of light side dark and more of a, like
gray.
In the trailer, a gray area of the Force. So I'm curious, could this being actually be the physical embodiment of the Bendu sages? Could Kanan have actually stumbled onto an ancient Bendu temple, possibly? Who knows?
I think this is less about it being physical, like in the sense of like kind of like Avatar, where you actually do see like lion turtles and stuff like that. But I think it's more of like in his head kind of thing, like, kind of like with Yoda. Like when Yoda did his little escapades in the season 6 of Clone Wars, I don't think any of that was actually like they were tangible things that he was dealing with. It was all things that were like, same with the Mortis arc. I don't deem that
to me
be
that
a
was
tangible
a dream.
thing that was all, which is like at the end of the episode they do wake up. You know what I mean? Like it's all something that
has
was
to be a dream
shared
for me.
dream thing. You know, and same with this, like all this stuff that they've been doing too, like even like Ezra's conversations with Yoda or Kanan's conversations with Yoda, they're all kind of like a metaphysical thing. So I don't really think this is like a planet he's going to, and I hope not. Like I really hope that this is still playing into the fact that he's meditating somewhere, and that's what he's being seen. And also, it looked like he has a sight back too in this scene.
No, he's still got his mask on.
Still has his mask on.
Yeah, and but he is in the
I've seen him in the back
he
of
is in the
his head
meditative
right now. Oh, no, his
meditative pose
mask
though.
on.
He is in a
Yeah.
meditative pose. So
Yeah. But again, that ties back, like, why would he have visions of the Bendu sages if he wasn't at a Bendu sage temple or a
location,
nexus?
nexus.
Which I think is fine. I think that part is fine, as
Like,
long as it's a metaphysical thing, not a tangible
Right.
thing.
Yeah, I don't mind like I say the metaphysical kind of representations in terms of avatar style forms. They just can't be physical like demigod beings. They have to be manifestations for it to be plausible for me. And even then, it's a bit because I like having the light side and dark side of the force not being physical entities, but rather
Yes.
a lens you see from an introspective point.
Yes.
Like you make your own light and dark. That's why you get the grey characters that are interesting, because they can blend them without being corrupted by one or the other, or lean one way or the other. It's their own
Like
viewpoint
the
that gives them
Bendu
that
sages.
ability. It's not this specific philosophy that they have. It's this personal ability to do it, based on their character. Like someone could be a raging lunatic 1 second and then pull themselves back. That's them, their personal ability to do so. It's not because they've got this really powerful light side trait that overrides the dark side kind of thing. It's because it's who they are. Someone like Anakin, who's overly emotional, doesn't have that. It's what makes the characters compelling. What makes us like to explore the ideas of light and dark, because it's the idea of, philosophy versus emotion blending together, and whether or not they can be compatible, and when they can
Keeps
and
the
when they
onus
can't.
on the character to make the choice that they make.
Yeah, it adds weight to everything, emotionally, physically, thematically, and taking that away, making it a third party, just manifestation, whether it be metaphysical or physical, it cheapens the
All
individual
around bad
moments.
moves. It's bad.
Yeah,
It stops being about your own personal relationship with the Force and how it expresses itself through you, and starts becoming more about which god do you worship.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It is-
It's a shame.
Motorcycle.
Sorry.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay. Like as Dumbledore said, it is our choices that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities, and that's what the relationship with the Force should be. And it's more interesting when it's that way. Not when it's just like designated. You're in this group. You're in this group.
Yeah,
But I
it's
doubt
ridiculous.
that that's what they're going for. I really do think it's just like
Hopefully.
their own personal demons that they're dealing with, or personal answers they're looking for, and not like an actual like, oh, I need to talk to this so God so I can get
But-
my answer.
To be fair, though, in
Canon-
that case, why
canon,
give it a
right.
voice? Why just not have it be subtle visions, like you see a panning shot zooming towards something and then it cuts like to a different thing? Like, why have it so I'm going to sit and talk to this wise old sage creature that's actually just my
Star Wars has
mind?
always kind of been a melting pot of different kinds of mythology, and I think this is playing into that same thing. It's always been about kind of all aspects, not just the Eastern or the Western, but kind of like a combination with them. Like that's why I think if it's done as if these physical gods are actually just something that you see metaphysically, it works in that idea of melding those two kind of ideas together, rather than it just being one type of philosophy that we have in our real world.
Yeah, I've no problem with the blending. It just specifically for this moment, like they've given it a voice, they've given it a manifestation. I want to see how they do it before I judge it.
Right. Yeah,
what they
we'll
do.
see.
Yeah.
We'll see what they do with that one. That one's probably the most interesting thing that they
Yeah,
can
yeah,
either
yeah.
be awesome, interesting, or something that's like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. 50-50.
Yeah, 50-50 for sure.
Kind of a lot of
Scout
rebels in
Troopers are
general, to
back.
be honest.
I like Scout Troopers. I like their armor a lot.
Yeah, troopers are cool, yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yep, I've always liked that design.
I agree. Pretty cool. And I think just more action side. And then him getting possessed by the Night Sister or the Sith Spirit, whatever it is. And he fights Maul. Kanan fights Maul with being possessed by whatever he's being possessed by.
That'll be interesting. Probably not. I don't know.
Oh, and people have an issue with Thrawn and Peebles. I don't really
Yeah.
have. I mean, I get the
Yeah.
reason, because it's an animated character. They you need to see where his eye line is and all that kind of thing. So I understand it.
Well,
I don't know
actually,
if you
that's
guys took issue with that.
I don't have an issue. I just want to mention something because I do find it weird that they went that route, because in the original concept art for Agent Callus, when he was originally going to be a Chiss, if you look at that artwork, they had him like almost fully rendered, animated, and he still didn't have pupils. It was just traditional Chiss red. So why they chose to give it to Thrawn, I just find it weird. I don't think it's bad. It's odd.
I've mentioned this before, but I think the best approach to take for giving Thrawn pupils would have been, instead of making them black, would have been instead to have made them white, paler than the rest of his eyes. So that way you can only see the pupils when you're actually close up, and when you're far away, they kind of disappear, which kind of adds a little bit of a creepy visual effect. Whereas here, it's just like, okay, red eyes. Hi, Voldemort.
That's one way to do it. I think that's a good idea. Or alternatively, you could have like the pupil itself being, instead of black, having it all around kind of red, and have it so that when he looks around, it's almost not like a focusing lens, because that would be cheesy and weird, but like a kind of a glowing intensity that moves around, like he sort of looks left, and you can't quite tell what he's looking at, and he gives like it's all in the facial expression rather than the eyes. Like it's because it would help his detached persona come through, and like in his calculation and stuff. Like he just looks, his eyes just flip, and they sort of soften or glow at a certain intensity, and just look in a certain way.
It's like eyes that are almost droid-like.
Yeah, we want to feel a disconnect between this person. He is a calculating mind. He's not this not emotional. Like, we don't need to see into his soul, basically, for Thrawn. But I'm not massively opposed to it. I mean, it's not that important in the grand scheme. It is just a bit of an odd decision. But I like Connor's idea as well. That would have been better than just black pupils, if you ask me.
And speaking of Thrawn, they're actually, Timothy Zahn is actually making a novel about how he came up through the ranks of
the origins of Thrawn.
Yeah, the actual origins, which is something we haven't had before. We just had
we've had veiled references in various books. He has somewhat of an origin in the novel Outbound Flight, but even then, that's when he's several decades old. We don't really see how that works before he even joined the Empire. So that'll be interesting.
I think this might turn into another one of those where it's establishing. Because I have faith in Timothy Zahn as an author. He'll do good work no matter what.
Likewise.
But it's starting to support one of my personal little theories in that all of the best new canon novels tend to be the autobiography novels, like Tarkin. It's like
the character pieces that are
I'm just saying, it's just a theory I'm entertaining at the moment. There isn't really much of a pattern yet, because the only new canon novels we have are like New Dawn, Heir to the Jedi, Dark Disciple, and Tarkin. And it's like, Dark Disciple was crap, no two ways around it. Heir to the Jedi was amazing because it was a character piece centered on Luke. And I actually did like Rebel Dawn, or was it New Dawn?
New Dawn was solid.
I did like it, especially the villain. But
Cam Vidian's awesome.
Yeah, it's like all of their stories that are centered around being character pieces really, really work, whereas Dark Disciple, which was trying to actually tell a story, was like...
The pain.
I have to keep that book facing backwards on my bookshelf, because seeing the name of it on the spine, it just makes me shudder. So I cannot bear to look at that book. That's how much I hate it.
I'm thinking Thrawn will be good. I'm almost guaranteed to enjoy it.
I know that's gonna be good.
Yeah, what I fear is how it will affect his character overall. Like the new generation that comes to Thrawn through this book, are they going to get a lesser version than we've had from the past, or are we going to get a version that could basically just fill in with what that we know already? Like
who knows?
I suspect that Timothy Zahn will probably take the same approach to this book that Lucino took to Tarkin. It's like, okay, fine. It's got the Disney logo on it. It is intended for the new canon. But guess what? This is going to be slotting in to the classic legends. This is for the original EU fans as well. And,
same sort of way Aftermath did.
Because I don't even think he thinks of it that way. Like, I don't think Lucino thinks of it in that direct of a way. Like, I'm going to make sure, like, that's just the way he writes. Like, that's just the natural, like, just natural breathing. It's not like a thing that he's, like, deliberately trying to do. It's just, that's just the way he knows how to do it, And the only thing that would bring that back is if somebody on the story group goes like, you can't really talk about that, or that kind of a thing. Like, that's the only way I can see them, like, taking something out or anything like that. Like, hey, that, that is the Rebels stuff. Oh, okay, sorry. One more story that I forgot to put in. I'm going to slide it in right before we talk about Rogue One. There is a rumor right now that, you guys can chime in if you want to, but this is something I want to talk to you personally because I can talk a lot about it.
That's fine.
Is that Donald Glover reportedly is top of the short list to play Lando Calrissian in the Han Solo film. Now, for you guys who are into Donald Glover out there, I don't know how many people are actually into him or know him. Some of you might know him as Childish Gambino, the rapper.
The one thing I don't like him in, actually.
I remember his character from The Martian, really quirky, I guess the astrophysicist.
I'll need to see that movie.
Right, and I really like Donald Glover a lot. Like, I like him a lot. Like, I'm going to say that just to preface it. Like, he's one of my favorite rappers. He's one of my favorite actors. But he's very limited, I think, in the way his range. Like, I've watched him for a while. Like, I've watched him since he was on YouTube. He used to do a channel called Derek Comedy. They made a movie called The Mystery Team. Then he went on and he started writing for 30 Rock, and he went on Community, and that's when people kind of blew up. That's where he blew up. People kind of like, yeah, and people knew him. And it's funny because in Community, he started out as a jock character. Like, he's supposed to be like just a straight up jock. And I was like, what the heck are they doing? This is Donald Glover. And then they kind of start evolving it to the point where he wasn't really a jock anymore. He was just kind of like a weirdo, because that's what Donald Glover kind of is, and that's where he's at his best. And I hearing that he might be like Lando Calrissian, I'm like, love the guy, but I definitely don't think he has a range for Lando, and I don't think he gives off that suave nature. Like, he's, like you said, like, you know him from The Martian. That's what he is. He's kind of like that quirky dude. Like, when he was up for possibly being Peter Parker in Spider-Man, I was like, yeah, that's dope. Like, that's who Donald Glover is. But as Lando Calrissian,
yeah, Lando Calrissian, he's the card shark. He's the gambler. And he's also that super suave ladies man. He's the guy sitting at the head of the poker table with a woman on each arm.
Yeah.
And just mounds of chips in front of him. That's who Lando Calrissian is. And, you know, I agree. I don't think Donald Glover could really do that, because he goes for the weird, the quirky, and, you know.
I think he can do it, but he's going to have to be completely different from anything we've ever seen before. He's going to have to bring the A game, and he's going to have to not be Donald Glover, basically. He's going to have to be. This is going to have to be a role where we forget he's Donald Glover, and it's whether or not he can do that.
And that's the thing. In Community, there's times where they have to play different characters, kind of, when they do like the specialty episodes, and I always feel like he still plays his same shtick. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't like, and I've seen him from like, he always plays that type of character all the way from his YouTube days. Like, he's always been that type. And I've never seen his range go far beyond that. Even though I love his work, like, but I don't think he's good for Lando personally.
I think he could be, but again, from what we know, we don't have much to work with. Like, he's going to have to show us something new.
He could surprise us.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, and I would hope he surprises us. Just his track record, not so great.
Yeah, he's not someone you wouldn't bet on him, basically, but he could put.
Do we know anything about like the context for Lando, like what story he'd be a part of?
Probably,
because he doesn't have to arrive.
Lose the Millennium Falcon, or something like that.
Like, he doesn't have to arrive fully formed. Like, if he can transform from like a
starts
young
out as
if he can do a Ewan McGregor, basically, if he can do a Ewan McGregor with the Obi-Wan role.
That's true. That's true.
But with that, you've got a bit more of a transition period. Like, there's not really much you can do with Lando.
I can't see him as Lando as we all know him right now, but maybe later, you know.
Yeah, like a kind of Street Rat level Lando sort of thing, maybe working his way up from there.
Yeah,
we always got establishment a little bit of what Lando is right now in Rebels, because he was in season 2. You know.
Yeah, he's a lower level smuggler, isn't he, at the moment?
Yeah. But yeah, I just want to get that out of the way before we go to the Rogue One, because that was something I forgot that I didn't mention. I was like, oh yeah, I know Donald Glover pretty well, and I need to talk about that.
Yeah, I'm a fan of him too. Funny enough, the only thing I don't like him as is Charlie Gambino, because I don't like his rapping.
Really? Oh my god, that's where he really does it for me. Really, that's where I think
he's
he shines.
really smart, but I dislike how much he relies on swearing. I don't have a problem with swearing in general, but if you just do that,
I think his first album was way, like, he was still kind of awkward, but I think the second one that he came out with in his mixtape recently, Kauai, I think is like, Sorry, that's completely off topic.
That's fine. That's fine.
It's the weirdest decided.
It happens, you know, yeah.
Rogue
Big trailer
One
now.
Trailer.
Yes.
That's a big one. They didn't do that celebration. They gave us like some silly behind the scenes thing. But,
yeah. What was that?
Which is weird. It's like, just show us the trailer. They
More
probably weren't.
important than the Olympics. You don't need...
What happened?
I said we're more important than the Olympics because that's when they debuted.
Oh, I guess so, yeah. But yeah, Rogue One starts off with what I believe is Jeddah, the planet, which is the new planet that they got going on for like the people who are like spiritually inclined to Jedi and stuff like that, which I think might be the origins of the Church of the Force.
That's
maybe.
what
I always found like a weird concept to big up. Like, why is that something you need to focus on? Always been a bit iffy on that one. The whole Church of the Force.
Actually, I was very surprised. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I don't think they need it. The the thing I'm most interested in about this movie is that it's not about Jedi. It's not about the Force. It's just about like regular people getting their own shit done.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently that's. I mean, like some people in my comments were like, "No, Star Wars is about the Jedi and the Force and the fight between dark and evil." I'm like, "What? It can be way more than that."
Yeah,
like,
that's
why are
the
we
main
trying
saga.
to
Yeah,
like, have a
that's the main saga. This is the point of the anthology: to develop the universe, the people
Exactly.
in it, let the world breathe. Yeah, they need to do that.
Speaking of which, they actually had they brought over a character from TCW. They brought Saw Gerrera into live action form.
Very
Which is
interesting.
pretty cool. Like a very small character who you kind of forget, you know, until they're like, "Oh, hey, yeah, it's coming back."
He wasn't even a bad character in TCW, so it's cool that they're doing that. I hope we see more of that, honestly, in the
Me
future.
too.
Oh,
Integrate more stuff into the live action specifically.
Yes, exactly. Bo-Katan live action, maybe. Who knows? Someday.
Katie Sackhoff could still pull it off.
And then they have the
What are we
temple
talking
thing.
about now? Okay.
We're talking about Rogue One trailer right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have the Star Destroyer over that, which I'm assuming is a base, Imperial base.
Yeah.
It's like I felt like this trailer didn't have a lot of new. I mean, like there was new images and things like that.
Yeah, but it
like,
doesn't really
it's like
say
fish-
much,
But
does it?
the locations are pretty much all the same from the teaser.
Right, which
Anything-
makes it seem like it's gonna be small. It's gonna be a small movie.
which is
Yeah, which is
again,
odd
isn't a
because
bad
the other
thing.
stuff didn't. Like this is what kind of brought it down into this sort of small area. Where I was envisioning like not like going all over the galaxy, but I was envisioning at least like jumping between a few planets and the starships. It's interesting to see whether they're not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know,
Does
they
anyone
do
else
have-
think that the sorry, Evan?
No, it's fine.
Does anyone else think that the Star Destroyer shot is being massively overhyped? Though a lot of people I've said that's such a great shot. And it's like, is any shot with
such a great
yeah,
shot.
but it's like is any
Kidding
shot
me?
with a Star Destroyer in like just automatically great now? I mean, it's just a Star Destroyer over a like.
But it's done so well, especially when you look at the freaking visual
It's
effect
coming
shot they
from
have
the
after
front.
it.
I don't know.
That
It didn't
starship
speak to me, that one.
lifting from Yavin 4. The Star Destroyers look perfection.
Oh no, don't get me wrong. It looks awesome.
I think
like,
you
the
have
actual
your
effects.
answer, Callan.
The effects
you
look
have your
freaking
answer.
awesome, but I just mean like the actual shot design, like the actual angle and stuff like it didn't to me.
Oh,
it
the
didn't,
shot
like,
is alright. But
yeah, that's what I meant. Like, the actual look was freaking phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. I will shout about the effects in these new films like to the end of the time. They're amazing. I just meant like the actual shot. A lot of people would say that's such a cool shot, and I was like, really? I mean, is any shot with a Star Destroyer
like,
cool
the shots
now?
are whatever. I mean, the coolest part is probably when they're inserting the dish, but
Oh, I love that. That's
But-
that's already a classic. Like when they
I
just
think
in the
most-
original trailer when
yeah.
they saw the seat descending, it's like that's awesome.
yeah, but I think most
Wasn't the
people
dish
tapping-
already installed when the Death Star was being constructed at the end of Revenge of the Sith?
Yes,
Well,
that's true. But
Yeah.
they could have.
Broken.
Right,
No.
Yeah, what
awesome.
engineers would.
You see the old dish just floating away.
It's like a light bulb needs to be changed out every 20 years. Forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There were some setbacks, you know. Like the first one didn't work. They're like, man, maybe we should use kyber crystals instead, and they use something
Yeah.
else. You know?
but it's a classic example of what we used to do with the EU. Like, oh, that made no sense. Quick, we'll just make an excuse for it. It was the dish didn't work, or it wasn't the right focus, or whatever. Yeah, problem solved.
Yeah,
Retcon works.
that's probably why it took so long to make in the first place. 20 years because we.
Yeah.
Our
Well,
ship fucked
that
up.
and the size.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, then size too. It
Oh,
takes long.
speaking of which, I love the eclipsing. The eclipsing
yeah,
shot.
the eclipsing. The eclipsing
Did
shot.
anyone
yeah.
else not even remotely think of
Really
that as a possibility? Like, I just never considered that. Yeah, that's actually an obvious, really awesome idea
Yeah.
for the Death Star.
It looks brilliant.
Like, you
yeah.
think, why has no one done that before? But it didn't even occur to me that could be, that kind of effect could be taken with that. It was like, yeah, that's a really good shot.
Psychological impact.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, you don't even need to
Oh, if
fire
you see
it.
it over
Just
your
sit
planet,
it
you're like,
there.
oh, we're messed up.
Yeah, like, well, we're leaving or shutting up and doing what the Empire says. Like, that's the entire point of the Death Star, isn't it? It's not the fact that it can blow them up. It's the fact that we can just plop that there and
And you
better
can,
start improving your
Sure
quota.
you want to rebel?
Exactly.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Are you sure you want to rebel? Are you sure you want to not meet your tithing quota? Like, get up, get
like if they
working.
would have
I-
kept Death Star intact, that's what it would have been used for. It would
Yeah.
just been like, hey, we're here. Hey, you see your son? Nah, no more.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right. And then boom, flies off.
Build up
and-
that quota. Build up that quota.
Yeah, precisely. That's exactly the only use it could really have, really.
Well, the Death Star is intended predominantly as a fear weapon. It's like I imagine the plan with the Death Star would have just been blow up a couple planets, make sure that there's plenty of news coverage of this happening, and then just park it over planets that cause them any problems and never actually use it again.
Right. It's never really meant to actually destroy the entire galaxy. It was just there to be like, hey.
No, that would have been stupid.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's-
Well,
'Cause that's
I
one
gotta
of the
say,
things-
I was talking about the Death Star's purpose. I was actually reading this thing in the Essential Guide to War, and it was talking about a lot of the stuff that Palpatine and Thrawn were doing leading up to the Yuuzhan Vong War, and how, from the perspective that all of their actions were in preparation for the war because they knew the Vong were coming. And that actually gives a good explanation for a logical reason for why you would want something like the Death Star. It's like when you got the Yuuzhan Vong coming at you with planet-sized starships made out of organic matter, it's like, oh, Yuuzhan Vong, Death Star, boom, 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 boom. Entire Yuuzhan Vong fleet gone.
I always loved that theory that they even put in the Essential. We mentioned it
I
before
like
a few
that
times,
theory
I think.
too.
I love it.
And
It doesn't fit
that's-
Palpatine, but if it was Thrawn, hell yes, that would be the
Yes.
great reason for him to have it.
And in fact, even from Palpatine, it does make sense because he is the sort of person who does spend decades laying out extensive long-term schemes and plans. And that's actually one of the reasons why I was so in favor of the Vong. The Vong gave the Empire a purpose beyond just being evil dictatorship. It's like the Empire exists for a reason. It was founded to combat this threat that these people see coming, and that the good guys basically screwed everything up by overcoming it, and now the Yuuzhan Vong fucked everything up, and it's all their fault.
One of the favourite things I liked about in the EU was when Pelion and the New Republic teamed up over... oh my god, I forgot the name. Ithor. Is it Ithor? Ithor, same planet. The name of the planet's what I'm talking about. To defend it against the Vong. That was awesome. I love that. I loved the politics and all the different things that worked in that regard around that situation. And the Vong just were a catalyst for that as a whole, like entire whole. Please go and read the Young Vong material, guys. It's amazing. Game of Thrones era of Star Wars, basically. But yeah, but for Palpatine, it never really fit for me. Like, it was always kind of a retcon idea for him. But for Thrawn, it made perfect sense always from the start of his character. But anyway, we're off topic now. Again, we tend to do that.
Yeah, it's fine.
We get some cool overhead shots of the Death Star going over the planet as well. There was a beam. Towards the
Yes,
bottom.
yeah. It's like as if you need to be more threatening, they even park it closer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we have Donnie Yen kicking butt again, as he always does in each other. I wonder if that's like his one scene. That's all he does. That's
Yeah, he
always
just
shows
goes.
up whenever- Oh, he just one scene.
I wouldn't risk. Well, no, because you see him in the ship actually later, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see him in the ship.
Yeah. I love that shot as well. The natural like feel of that moment, and as well, they actually have soldiers with them. They're not just this 6-man team that are expected to
Right.
take on the
There are
entire
some rebel
Empire.
soldiers.
Yeah, I'm hoping they're not just being brought on as red shirts, but if they aren't, then great, because that's an awesome, realistic approach.
No, but Donnie M thing, I'm curious. It's interesting what they'll do with him. What his deal is.
Yeah, like, is he a Jedi? Is he just a martial artist of Force persuasion? Like, which way
Well,
are they going to go for
that
it?
he's not, because I went to the data bank after someone told me, and he's not Force sensitive. He's just really, really believes in like the Force. Like, again, that's what I'm thinking. Like, okay, Jedi might be like the origins of this Church of the Force thing that's going on.
Lord
okay.
Santeca's like great uncle or something.
You know, something in that regard. Like they both follow that same sort of mentality, and that's all it is. Like, he's not actually channeling the Force, but he believes that the will of the Force does kind of the same way like any God-fearing person would say, like, you know, whatever God's will is, like, is that kind of a thing. Even though God's will isn't really doing anything, you know. I mean, sorry if that's like, I don't know if it's offensive to anybody, but
I do believe in fairies. I do.
But it's kind of like that. It's kind of like believing in it, even though it's not actually physically channeling through you. You know, it's just your own effort.
Yeah, the power
That's
comes
kind of-
from the belief as opposed to the power existing.
And there's
like
nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong by living by those ideals.
It depends on how
In
you
any
do it.
case. Well, of
No, I
course.
mean, it's fine.
Well,
Yeah, and it
sorry,
depends how
Matt.
far you take it too. But,
Yeah,
you
of
gonna say
course.
something,
Well, I meant
sorry?
like by Jedi ideals. I meant even if you're not. Force.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about it before, like how it arguably doesn't make sense that there's people in the universe that don't even believe in the Force. But, you know, whether it doesn't really matter what side of that debate you're on. But for me, we all know what Avatar is here. To me, it's kind of like acknowledging the spirituality behind bending, even if you're not a bender. Like that's where I'm kind of hoping he just has regard for it, even if he can't touch it.
Yeah, like
I hope he's
some
not just
characters
fucking
do.
selling it. That's
Exactly it.
Yeah, my big worry with this character is that they're basically going to be retconning the midichlorians and saying that anyone can access the Force, because this is one idea that a lot of the classic fans of the original trilogy hold to, that anyone can access it. Because my response to that is, if anyone can access the Force, then why doesn't everyone?
Yeah, that's
That's
the
why
problem.
that's why the midichlorians are necessary. We need an explanation for why only some people can access the Force and why it's exclusive to these organizations. It's like the idea of it's like if anyone can access the Force, everyone would. And in fact, because so many people would be accessing the Force with the intention of developing the superpowers, you'd be getting a lot of Darksiders running around, because that's the aspect of the Force that people would be really focusing on and caring about.
Yeah.
And there'd be millions of Jedi instead of only hundreds.
From a world-building
Or worse yet,
perspective, the entirety of the society would be built around the Force, like bending.
Yeah.
It would basically have to work like that, otherwise it wouldn't make any
Basically,
sense.
without the midichlorians to give you a genetic thing that makes Force sensitivity exclusive, everyone would start accessing the Force, and the Star Wars galaxy would turn into the wizarding world of Harry Potter overnight.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not what's happening. He's not. He is specifically stated to not be Force sensitive. He's not channeling the Force whatsoever.
It was also always genetic in the original trilogy, by the way. I never understand why
Yeah.
people forget that. It was always a genetic thing. They just gave it a name in the prequels.
It was specifically
Right. Yeah, it just
stated to
has a
be
name.
hereditary.
Yeah, so day one, people. Day one.
Mildly disagree with all of you, I think, but whatever.
Oh, do you? What did you disagree on there?
Well, because it wasn't like confirmed that you can't use the Force until the prequels, like unless you have midichlorians.
No, but
In
the
the
idea
context
of
of the
the idea
films.
of it being a genetic part of your genetics, that was always.
I
the
said
thing.
mildly disagree.
Oh, right.
You're
Sorry,
right
yeah.
about that.
Yeah, no, it's to say, yeah, because that's the big stickling point with the argument.
Because
on
in the
there.
context of like generic fantasy, like all these, knights, their orders died off. Who's gonna teach the next generation? It's a lost art, or whatever. That's the idea that I think most people had before it came out. That no, you're strictly born with it.
I get the idea of the whole mysticism of working that fashion. It kind of took away from the idea that, again, like Connor said, more people would be Force sensitive. If it
In the
was that
context
way.
of the films, though.
Oh, just the
that's not
films,
as-
no,
That's what I'm
no,
saying.
because it's a much smaller like world at that point.
Well, because like a lot of kids, their favorite characters, like say Han Solo, right? And Han Solo, like he badmouths the Force, and it's silly, it doesn't exist, whatever. It's all hokum, forget it, kid. They like to think that if Han was more open-minded, maybe he could learn to use it too. And midichlorians was like, no. So I mean, I'm not saying that it's something that is a problem. I'm just saying for a lot of people, it was a disappointment.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's not so much a problem with midichlorians. It's a case of them feeling the lack of mysticism, isn't it? As a result, it's kind of a separate issue.
But
Yeah,
all of that, you're right, but it wasn't strictly genetic in the films from day one, like you guys kind of just said. It just wasn't.
Okay.
It kind of was when it's about
But,
Luke,
you know.
yeah. He says like my family's
Look,
Force is strong in
the
my
Force
family.
is strong in your family.
Why would it be strong in his family if it wasn't genetic? What other?
Yeah,
people
I said it wasn't strictly. I didn't say it wasn't at all.
Well, yeah, but the implication, what little implication we have to work with, always pointed towards a combination of genetic and spiritual. Like you had to have the
Well,
genetics, and
if
then you had to
that's
have the
true-
spiritual, like building on that.
Then why was everyone disappointed in 1999 if it was so obvious? That's, I guess, I think what you're saying is just self-invalidating.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, we can't speak for those other people because I think like we're kind of not
spoiled
the
by what we know.
usual. You know what I mean? Like I think if you were talking like in another Star Wars podcast, you probably would get that mentality. But I think for us, or at least for us three or us four, we kind of always I never thought of it that way, like the Force in that regard. That
I think
that
most
it was
people
just
do.
like
That's what
anybody
I'm
who touch it. Yeah, but yeah, we're just
The
saying
thing
from our perspective is kind of a limited one.
From a certain
The
point
thing
of view.
is, we are approaching the Force from a world-building perspective, whereas they tend to be approaching it from more of a wish fulfillment fantasy perspective. Like they want to be able to say, "Oh, if I existed in the Star Wars universe, I could be a Jedi." But then suddenly, this whole idea of genetic Force sensitivity basically refutes that. Oh, because it basically says, "Oh, if I, just as I am, were put in the universe, I couldn't be a Jedi because I'm not Force sensitive." Well,
Are you guys
fuck.
arguing that midichlorians were explained well in the films?
Oh hell no, hell no. But
No,
the
but
idea
that's
behind them
not
isn't
the
the
problem
problem.
with it.
Midichlorians,
Like
the
it's
source that it's-
disappointment. It's disappointment on top of no further explanation. I think is
Yeah.
part of the.
It's,
So
the execution was piss poor, but the actual
Yeah.
idea wasn't a problem. It was perfectly reasonable explanation for what we already had, on top of what we already had.
But it
in
wasn't
terms of the
no
idea, the explanation given. I mean, Qui-Gon gave a really horrific, like boring, tedious. Why are you mentioning this description? But it was pretty, explanatory on how it worked. Like this is a genetic connection that
We can
allows
stop
us.
talking about it. I'm just saying, like you guys were just saying from day one, and I just don't agree. But we
Okay.
can stop talking about it.
Fair enough.
Okay.
What was next on the list, or what next scene would we see?
Trailer stuff. We do.
We already talked about the eclipsing thingy, so and we talked about Donnie just now.
Yep.
We do get more
That's
shots.
what that whole thing was about.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Evan?
I was gonna say we get more shots of the mysterious admiral. With the
Oh
cane.
yeah, Director Krennic, whatever his name is.
Right. Director Krennic.
Personally, whatever.
We have nothing from him. I wish we had at least a line from him or something like that.
Yeah, we don't even.
No,
don't
I kind of like
sound-
the
yeah.
mystique about him.
Well, personally, I don't really care for him at all because it's just like the moment I first saw him standing there in his white uniform, the first thing that came to mind was, oh, he's a watered down ripoff of Grand Admiral Thrawn. How original.
Well, I mean,
That
there were 12
Yeah.
Grand Admirals, so
Yeah, if he's
Still,
a Grand Admiral, I have no
it's-
problem with it. If he's not, then it's why is he looking like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I like
It's-
him so far from what we've seen. He seems quite the right kind of character for the film.
Oh, he doesn't have the Xenia for Grand Admiral, so I don't know. I don't know how they're gonna do that.
Yeah, no, that's the downside.
I'm looking at that. Yeah.
maybe he's just very fashion forward.
Or he's a wannabe. Look, I got the dress down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he knows.
Things I
Thrawn.
did. One of the things that did kind of
knew
I
of.
liked about the Tarkin novel is the mention when Tarkin's getting a new uniform tailored for him is how some high-ranking Imperial officers go for customized uniforms intended to show off their individuality. And this guy's idea of customization is solid white with a cape, and I'm just like, really?
Well, I mean, I think it's a good look as long as he has the character to back it up. That's all that matters.
Oh yeah, so I mentioned the Kylo Ren reacting to the Rogue One thing, and there's one thing that he brought up with the AT-AT, and he's like, "Oh, why didn't they have that on Hoth?" But actually, I want to make a point that the AT-AT actually tanks the shot, like and that's what the thing about them is that they're like really really robust, like
Yeah, it just hits
elephant
and it just,
tanks.
swings back.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like I'm sure
Yeah.
after he gets knocked like that, it's not like he does have like a little bit of flames. But I'm sure the head just comes back and goes, and he's gonna be like, "Oh
Yeah.
shoot," which makes sense. That like, that's why you can't just take him out like that. You have to use your torpedoes to wrap him up.
Cables.
But I don't know if that's
Or just
gonna
have a
bring-
massive covered pit for it to walk into.
right. Make some trenches, some huge trenches that it can fall into.
Yeah, no, I think any symbolic explanation like that. I mean, the AT-ATs never really made any sense in the first place, to be fair, did they? But we didn't care because they're awesome.
They're
in
another
that
one of
regard.
those things that the Empire created specifically to be intimidating,
Yeah.
not to be practical. When you see those things advancing on your city, your first response is, "All right, I surrender! I surrender! I surrender!"
It's the War of the Worlds kind of thing, isn't it? Just towering above you, like, boom, kind of thing. Like, okay, that's terrifying. Even if it's not practical, it's not the point.
And the
It's-
funny thing is that when you actually stop and think about it, they actually kind of are practical from a certain perspective because it's basically an elevated gun platform.
yeah, if
it's
you
a
go with it
roving-
within the fiction of the world, and if it could possibly work, then yeah. But
Yeah,
you have to
it's-
kind of suspend that for that bit.
yeah.
But who cares? They're awesome. They always have been. The idea is ridiculous, but it's one of those ones that works.
It's mostly ridiculous only because of the world that they're in. There's much more practical weaponry you can
Yeah.
use.
Did that bother anybody when they were 8 and saw it?
Oh hell no!
Hell no.
Oh no! Even now, it's
Yeah.
one of those things that
Yeah.
doesn't bother me. Those, just because of the effect it had. There was reason behind them being somewhat silly. It wasn't just silly for silliness' sake,
Right.
even though they are just walking space camels.
How do you guys feel about the very very last shot?
What was the very
Vader?
last shot? Oh right,
Yeah.
yeah, Buckethead.
Yeah.
I mean, it was.
Well, we knew from the beginning he was going to be in it, even before it was official. So, no
And
surprise
Because I
there.
mean, duh.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they gave us what we wanted, just the breathing.
It was framed beautifully.
Hmm.
Nope.
You think so? I thought it wasn't framed very well.
Yeah, I thought it was a
Really?
bit awkward.
I
in
think
the
it's a really
placement.
flat image.
Yeah, I thought
Well,
it was
that's
a
the
bit.
point.
Sure.
He's looking at a screen. It's a back shot.
So the guy said
Yeah,
in the
but they
video,
could've-
"Oh,
I mean-
taxes."
But they could have gave him some backlight. Like, there's no separation for him. Like in movies, do this all the time. They even though it won't make sense in terms of like the practical lighting. Like it's a movie. You do want the best kind of like lighting. And I feel like it's a very like boring image like to look at. Like really. Like, it's not the most interesting. It's not the most iconic Darth Vader image I've ever looked at.
It is odd that they chose a back shot. It's like we know what he looks like. You don't need to keep
Yeah.
his face a secret. No
I,
one
Or
I
at least
don't
have,
mind
like,
the back
turned a little
shot.
bit.
I don't mind the back shot. I always loved that shot of him and then Palpatine on the bridge of the Star Destroyer with the Death Star in the background, where it's just sort of is him just standing there looking out across the bridge. I like that. I don't mind the back. It's just like Anton says. It's kind of like it's just you can tell that's just kind of been pulled from the film, like a really unimportant scene, and they're kind of making it into something in the trailer that it really isn't. Or at least that's what my impression is, anyway.
Right, like it's not like
They're just
with,
confirming he's there.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're just
Yeah,
confirming
pretty
that.
much.
Yeah.
yeah, but
It's
they
like, oh,
didn't.
we
But they
can
didn't
put-
give us
that's
anything over the top.
Stop
That's,
asking us.
yeah, but they didn't give us anything
Yeah,
over the top.
exactly.
So we've got what we want so far. Because we want him as a background character, don't we? We want him as a Jaws effect kind of thing. And they
Right.
may be going for that if we're lucky.
I feel like he's just gonna be a third act villain type thing. Yeah,
Like
and it's
the last final
shit,
climactic
Vader's
threat.
coming. Like,
Yeah,
know,
ticking
he's on
clock
his
of
way.
the story.
Donnie M just like, and they just start, oh shit.
hey,
Yeah.
our thing that we
I do
thought
wanna
might still
see-
happen.
Yeah.
Donnie Yen could be like, hey,
Yeah.
I'll hold him
I
off.
do
I'll
wanna
hold
see-
them off. Yeah, that would be cool. As long as they don't do it in a cheesy way, that would be really a nice
Hit them
dramatic
with a
effect.
staff.
I could- I'm just picturing this whole thing where Vader's just advancing on Donnie Yen with his ignited lightsaber, but then he's just like extinguishes his lightsaber, puts it away, and then just summons up a little stick or a piece of debris so he could actually properly school this guy in a martial arts display rather than just casually hacking him in half with the lightsaber.
Wait, you mean him using a
What?
You mean doing like a
What's
Treya?
that?
Is that what you're saying?
No, he means
Yeah.
using like a. You do mean Traya, right? Okay.
No, I mean basically just picking up a stick or a piece of debris or even just going at it hand to hand and basically just tearing him apart with martial arts in a situation that shows off Vader's mastery rather than just him hacking him in half with a lightsaber.
Oh,
Should be unique. I mean,
Excuse me.
I'm
and
not
you just like
following.
catch the staff with his hand.
I think
throw
I
it
am
back.
following, but I don't want to. Because the way I'm imagining right now, by the way you're describing it's describing is that he'll be making like a stick or a rock float, and he's like making it.
No,
fight.
no,
Well,
he
I
means
mean,
he means
I'm
grabbing a
Vader
stick and using it instead of a
in his hand.
lightsaber as a weapon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no, not
Okay.
some
That's a little less
telekinetic thing.
ridiculous.
I mean
Okay.
Vader tearing him apart with martial arts in a situation where he can show his mastery of martial arts, but in a manner that doesn't involve him using an overpowered, unbeatable weapon.
That would be weird. That like, is there not?
I think
weird
Darth
degree
Vader's a
of
little bit more
urgency?
efficient than
Yeah,
that.
that's the thing.
Like, well, there's urgency. I need to get the plans back. I don't have time to mess around with you. Like,
I think
he
that's
should
what it
be
would
trying.
be. Yeah, that he would just
Like
choke
he
him
should be
real quick.
trying. And this is an opportunity to have like a competent martial artist playing the character. Like, not really seen that since Ray Park. Okay, I would
Yeah,
like
that's true.
this to
True.
be good. Like, I would like this to be good.
Yeah. I'm kind of, again, of two minds with it. I in one way, I want to see this awesome fight because it seems like it'd be a really interesting moment. But on the other hand, I kind of want to see this guy established as a really awesome fighter and then have Vader just crush him to kind of build that dramatic tension at the end of the scene. Like, if he's going to be this final act, this climax of the tension, like the ticking clock, the Death Star coming around the planet while before they can blow it up kind of thing, then I want
If
it
they
to be...
do that, if they do that, it's a kind of a wasted cast. for
Yeah,
me.
that's the problem.
They could
That's
just have
why.
anyone do that.
That's why I'm of
Exactly.
mixed. It's like I want to kind of see maybe a blend. It's like he engages him, but very quickly loses, and like they're all expecting him to last like a few minutes or something. And like, quick, we've got time, it's all right. And then
got
they,
time,
they
it's
look back,
him.
and he's already like, and they
Yeah,
what?
exactly.
No, and they just run, and then just get out.
It's like a Terminator situation where you think like, oh, okay, we got time. We'll freeze him. Oh, wait, no,
Yeah.
he's back.
Yeah, I kind of not sure how they're going to do it, but that's the great thing about it. We're not sure, and I'm not dreading anything, so that's good.
Yeah, the cool thing about the trailer though, that the part that I was kind of critical of before is that I don't really know much. It's not happening much, but it's fun because like I know I'm going to watch it, and I don't really like trailers that over-explain. Yeah, like exactly where the third act's going to come. Like how the plot's going to go down. It's like
Yeah.
what?
Well,
Like you'll
it takes
watch
all
whole
the fun
trailers
out.
where they go through the entire like all the plot points,
Oh,
like
yeah.
all the story beats, and you're like, wait a minute, I just watched the movie.
Yeah, it's
Do
so
I
annoying.
still need to pay tickets for this?
And that's one of the things about this trailer. Like, we get lots of new shots, but really, it's not telling us anything. Like
That's good.
Yeah, I like it. It's a good thing. Although they keep hinting, like, is anyone else getting more hints that maybe Urso is going to be a traitor or like his double agent? Like, she's walking toward that TIE fighter, and I'm thinking, are they trying to trick us into thinking
I don't
that's the
know.
case?
I don't know.
Because that's still at the back
I
of my
think
mind
there's
as a
that's gonna come
possibility.
up briefly because she does have ties to the Empire.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's actually going to be a spy, but I think that might like come up. Like someone might be suspicious of
Yeah,
her.
maybe they doubt her or something. And I don't know.
Right.
Maybe that's her.
Well,
Fine, you doubt
they
me?
see-
Walk up, bang, dead. Now you doubt me?
Considering that Jyn Erso basically looks almost exactly like Rey, I'm thinking they're going to be making it so Jyn Erso is Rey's mother, and the idea of
confirmed that already.
Yeah,
Not
she
happening.
already came out and said that didn't.
oh,
wasn't be the case.
okay, well then fine.
I thought
Well,
that would be awesome though, but
the whole
It
idea
would make
for
sense,
Mom
at
being
least.
the whole idea for Mom being some double agent with connection to the Empire might
Oh,
actually
okay.
explain why Rey
The
got
accent?
left on Jakku.
Oh, I'm saying her accent too. Oh yeah, because Jakku. Well, she wasn't left off during the Battle of Jakku because then she would have been like no years age. You know what I mean? Like, but Jakku was one of the last strongholds for the Empire in the canon. But that'd be cool. And then also, the Rey's accent. You know, she has to have some sort of imperial tie, right? Like she's British,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, they're all bad.
yeah, they're
All evil imperial officers, all British people. You may fire when ready. It's like typical.
General Hutz.
Yeah.
One of the things I think I remember talking about in our previous in our review of Force Awakens or somewhere is how one of the whole things with accents is that a lot of them are regional accents. So people from the core have the British style, people from the Outer Rim have the Americanized. And that was actually one little detail in Force Awakens that kind of disappointed me because they're just keeping up with this whole idea of the bad guys being Brits. If the New Order is based in the Outer Rim, then maybe more members of the New Order should be speaking with Americanized accents because that's where they're from.
My
No one is
counter
thinking
to
of it on
that.
level.
No, but
My
no,
counter to
someone
that, though, is
seems
that
like
they are trying to retain that identity of the Empire. So the First Order would retain that way of speaking as well. So and everything, like if you think about just the First Order and Kylo Ren in general, they're just trying to replicate what came before. Like Kylo is totally trying to replicate Vader. The First Order is trying to replicate the Galactic Empire. So they're going to do these things that emulate them. You know, Kylo puts on this mask that he totally doesn't need because he's not like on his deathbed in his suit. The Empire like makes another Death Star because they are trying to emulate it. So I think it does make sense. I mean, I'm just going from the other way around it. How to rationalize it is that they would keep those accents as a way of being like, hey, we are still this legitimate empire. You know, even though we don't live in the core anymore or anything like that. So.
It works in both ways. It depends what kind of way you're looking at it from. Like Matt said, they're really not thinking about it on
The
that
people
level.
in
They're
charge are
making it,
not
no.
thinking of it.
They're not thinking
No.
about even close to that level. Again, it's a
Unlikely.
film for them. They're thinking characters,
bad,
they're thinking
he's
scenes,
British.
they're thinking dramatic moments, they're thinking action shots. That's what they're thinking about. They're not so much involved in the world side.
But that's it. There's no more news. We caught up, guys.
We're caught up. Finally. Sorry for the late episode. We
Yeah.
kind of had trouble marshalling each other. We're kind of
So,
scattered to the wind.
final opinions on everything that's happening then?
Oh man.
Looking forward to what's coming. I'm not as apprehensive about this material.
There's
as
so
the rest of
much,
it.
Yeah.
Episode 8, I'm just dreading, but this I'm excited for. Like I want to see what they're doing with it. I want to see what directions they take, how they take said directions, and why they take said directions, and just looking forward to overall.
I definitely like what I'm seeing, so.
I gotta say, while I remain kind of ambivalent because it's like, you know, at this point, that's how I am about everything. It's like, I was looking forward to Rebels and, well, mildly looking forward, willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, and that disappointed me. And mildly looking forward to Episode 7, trying to see what they had, that disappointed me. So it's like, I've just been disappointed so many times by the new canon stuff that I'm just really, really ambivalent. Like, I'll have a little bit of faith that this movie is going to be good, but at the end of the day, I'm always going to be butthurt about the loss of my expanded universe stuff. But one thing I will say is that if Episode 7 had been going for this tone instead of what it did, it probably would have been a lot better.
Oh hell yes, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm there too. Like, I'm kind of tired of getting my hopes up and being disappointed, but this does look good. Like, it looks more kinetic, it looks fun, looks engaging.
Yeah.
But, who knows? I thought Episode 7 would be good. I also argued against them just doing, like, a shot-for-shot remake. I thought they would do that. They did that, though.
We were laughing at the idea of
The trench run? No, we're talking about the trench run.
Yeah, trench run and another
Yeah.
Death
Yeah,
Star.
we're like,
We
nah,
were
they
laughing.
didn't do the
Like,
trench run.
They
Come
wouldn't
on,
do
Of
it
course
at the
not.
Death Star. I mean, come on, they wouldn't be that stupid, and they did it. So,
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm really tired of being wrong about that kind of stuff, but I do like what I'm seeing.
I'm getting like a Suicide Squad level of enjoyment here, vibe, kind of nothing amazing, but enjoyable overall with this film for me.
Yeah. Did you see Suicide Squad?
I did, yes. I enjoyed it.
Same.
Massive flaws, but I enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah, I'm the same as you.
I thought it was fun. That was really about it for me.
Yeah. It completely ruined certain characters, though.
Yeah, but, that's what DC's been doing, right?
At least they're consistent.
They're just so desperate to catch up with Marvel that they're not really putting much thought into the stuff they're cranking out. So it's like, yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
sorry guys, we're totally getting off topic. We're going to say goodbye now because we're
Yeah, I
not
was
talking
gonna
about
say, what are we talking about now?
yeah, I know, like,
Well, we have to do it at least once. Come on, let's face it. Wouldn't be a
Get it-
council
get
episode
it
if
out
we
of the
didn't start
way.
talking about Star Wars. Okay, so yeah, I'm ready for. I didn't say that at the start. Apologies. I've mixed that one. Yeah, I'm
Nobody
ready for.
said it. Yeah.
No, well,
Oh, yeah,
no
we
one did. I
never-
meant I
yeah.
didn't bring anyone through like I usually do. But yeah, my mistake.
It's
Sorry.
okay.
I'm sure the podcast is ruined as a result. I'm ready for. Goodbye.
Shensurai 1 signing off.
That's one. Peace, love.
Evan Over 95. We hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys later.
Yep, Greg did on 91. Next time we'll talk about something I like.
Yes.
Do,
The next
do,
episode
do,
will be
do,
Plagueis.
do.
Look forward
Yes.
to it.
Part 3.
And goodbye.